Hello, everyone. It's 7:02 p.m., and I'm calling the Hamilton Planning Board meeting to order, the October 21st, 2025 Hamilton Planning Board meeting. The meeting is being recorded by HWCAM. I do believe we may have a member present by Zoom.
Yeah, Beth.
So I'm going to call roll, so when I call your name, would you please indicate that you're present? Pat Norton.
Present.
Jonathan Poor.
Jonathan Poor, present.
Emil Dahlquist.
Emil Dahlquist, present.
Beth Herr.
Present.
Darcy Dale.
Darcy Dale, present.
Jeff Austin.
Jeff Austin, present.
Matt Hamill.
Matt Hamill, present.
And Marty Crouch, present. And I note for the record that Bill Wheaton is not present. He advised me that he had a conflict this evening. So we're having a public hearing, as you all know, this evening. And Mark, at this juncture, would you be so kind as to read the notice of public hearing?
Sure. Notice is hereby provided that the Hamilton Planning Board will conduct a public hearing pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, for consideration of proposed amendment to the Hamilton zoning bylaw, and to enact site plan regulations. That public hearing will be held on Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, at 7 p.m. at the Hamilton Wyndham Public Library, 14 Union Street in Hamilton. Matters under consideration by the Planning Board include the proposed implementation of the Browns Hill Overlay District for the parcel of land containing the Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, located at 130 Essex Street, Assessor's Map 64, Lot 5. The proposed overlay zoning district would replace the underlying zoning, zoned R1B, on the parcel and would permit certain residential and institutional uses by right or special permit and limited commercial uses by a special permit. Proposed rezoning includes dimensional use and building type regulations governing development on the parcel. The purpose of the proposed amendments is to guide the future redevelopment of the property, including the potential reuse of campus buildings, to encourage contextual forms of development under a new regulatory framework, to enhance the town's tax base, and to preserve the character of the property and surroundings, including valuable open spaces and landscapes. Second, proposed revisions to the planning board schedule of fees containing the application fees for all planning board applications. And third, the proposed enactment of site plan regulations governing the ministerial requirements for all site plan applications. Remote electronic login access is provided via Zoom as a courtesy. However, the meeting will not be terminated in the event that technological issues disrupt the Zoom broadcast. Login information.
Can't hear very well. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm having a hard time hearing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Login information is included on the October 21st, 2025 Planning Board meeting agenda. The full text of the proposed zoning bylaw amendments, schedule of fees, and site plan regulations may be reviewed at the town clerk's office located at the town Patton Homestead during regular business hours or at the Planning Board webpage at the address below.
Okay, so as everyone is aware, the planning board is working very hard to finalize
You
this.
need more volume, I'm sorry. Working on it.
If you want to move forward, that's fine too, if it helps. So we've been working very hard to finalize this Browns Hill Overlay District. There are a lot of moving parts and a lot of interested parties. We are hampered by the fact that one of our meetings was not canceled, but we couldn't hold it because of an administrative error. The library, which we thought was available, unfortunately was not because of the book sale, so we lost one meeting day. But the most current documents have all been posted on the planning board's webpage, and that was done this afternoon. So the text of the overlay district itself has not been modified extensively from the draft that was on the webpage for over a week. I can just indicate to you that we did add noting that uses permitted by right are subject to site plan review. That is something that is common in all our zoning bylaws. It's something that is triggered by an applicant seeking a building permit. The other addition that we made was a Table 5, which sets forth floor area ratios, and we did add a provision relative to Table 4, which contains metrics with respect to maximum building footprints and maximum building floor areas. And in this provision, we enabled the planning board to modify those metrics if the modification does not compromise the purpose and intent of any other applicable provisions of the bylaw. And the purpose of that change was to enable the planning board to consider a good project that might not expressly meet the metrics in the tables. So those are the only two changes to the actual text of the Browns Hill Overlay District. And our focus this evening will be on finalizing the tables. But I think that it would be most helpful to begin this process by hearing from the people here, the public. And I would ask that if anyone has any comments with respect to the Browns Hill Overlay District, that they limit their remarks to 3 minutes and then identify themselves and their address for the record. So if anyone has any remarks at this time, you're welcome to come forward. And once you have made your remarks and everyone is satisfied that they've made their points, the planning board will turn to its work and try and incorporate your comments, but also finalize our tables. And if time permits, we will allow further discussion. But I will say that this public hearing is going to be continued to November 4th. And so on November 4th, we hope to have the absolute final version of this document. We do have to, as a planning board, vote favorably or unfavorably, as the case may be, on, I believe, November 18th. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. I believe it's November 18th.
Yes.
For purposes of the warrant and the special town meeting. So at this juncture, if anyone would like to comment, I will note that this draft overlay district has many provisions that that are consistent with our other bylaws, but they are also there because we did listen to the abutters. So we have 50-foot buffers, we have open space requirements, we have separated a heritage landscape, we've identified natural zones that are predominantly wetland, and we also have now maps that have been signed by licensed surveyors that delineate the steep slopes on the site that are unbuildable. So this, the planning board will be discussing the overall density of the site, but in no event will this density be increased from what it is now by any metric that is truly substantial. So I think that overall, as the site evolves, it's not going to be a drastic change from what it is now. Did any other board members want to just make any introductory comments other than the ones that I made? Okay, so I'm happy to hear from any of you. And before you begin, I'll just make one other comment. I will note for the record that the Select Board last night discussed at length with the public and also the seminary, both funding a traffic study, and also there were slides presented about the wastewater treatment plant. And as I've stated before, those two topics, while they're critical to the abutters. They're not part of zoning. So there's nothing that would be appropriate to add to this zoning bylaw with respect to those two topics. Now, the density will affect the traffic, so we are aware of that. But we could not, for example, include a provision that in no event can traffic exceed so many cars per day. I mean, that would not be zoning. And similarly, because the Commonwealth is charged with overseeing the wastewater treatment plant, it would not be appropriate for us to try and interfere with that in a zoning bylaw. There are other mechanisms for addressing that. So, please.
Thank you. My name is Nancy Dashkin. I live at 215 Woodbury Street. And I was at the Select Board's meeting last night, and I've been at most of the other meetings as well. And I want to emphasize that I recognize that the progress that has been made has been incredible, particularly in the last 3 weeks. So my comments tonight and my requests are based on that knowledge, okay? So, having read all the documents late this afternoon, and recognizing what also was mentioned last night at the Select Board meeting, that there has been a concession that there will be no commercial development except in 2 buildings on the seminary. I think that's a really important and wonderful concession. So with that in mind, I looked at the tables, and tables 1 through 4 will need to be revised to be consistent with that no commercial development now in place, based on what I heard last night. So moreover, I think it would be helpful to add some sort of restrictions or explanations on the Pilgrim Hall use and the Gatehouse use. Also, I think it's great that you're going to put some sort of square footage maximum on. I think that's really important. That was going to be one of my suggestions. With respect to the wastewater treatment plant, there is something in the overlay district content, and I just want to emphasize that that plant cannot be expanded on its present site. And I understand that we are going to be paying for a transportation assessment, and I think that's wonderful, and I think it has to be done, and I'm really happy with that. Also, it seems, from what I can read, that the GPOD, Groundwater Protection Overlay, is a major document, and there's a 2019 letter that we have from an abutter that expressed concerns about that requirement. And I'm wondering whether all of those issues with respect to groundwater have been addressed with the BHOD, and I was just hoping somebody could speak to that. Finally, the area around the lower campus, those apartments, it's not so much, it's not big enough for them. There isn't enough space for the people who are going to live in those apartments to get around, to have places to walk around. And I'm really concerned about that. And I know other people on the planning board have brought this up. So I'm just wondering, is there a way to designate more land area to the lower campus so that there's adequate space for the apartments and the residents who live there? And one of the things that occurred to me was the use of Pilgrim Hall. Could there be space in Pilgrim Hall for something associated with the apartments in the lower campus? Like a space that they could rent a room if they needed, to have an event or something like that. A lot of apartment complexes have that, and that would seem to be a really good space to maybe be able to do that. So I just wanted to bring that up, along with maybe dealing with, and I hesitate to say it, the borders of the middle campus to allow for more space. And I appreciate what you're doing. I want this to be done right, because I think it'll work if it is done right. Thank you.
I will just add that the tables have been revised to address commercial use only in Pilgrim Hall and the Gatehouse.
Okay.
Emil and I, in our discussions, and it's something that the planning board is going to have to consider, thought that adding the retreat house to that mix might be worthwhile, because in the event that the seminary left the campus and the retreat house was available, there were any number of uses that might be appropriate there. I mean, there could be residential uses, condominiums, they could be lovely, but it also could be an event center for weddings or whatnot, because you can imagine that on that patio, if it was landscaped, it could be a beautiful venue for parties and that type of thing. So we were thinking of doing that. We have added that to the table, subject to planning board review. And so if anybody has any comments about that, that's another potential source of revenue for the town down the road. And of course, we said reuse by right with any expansion by special permit. But again, the planning board has not put its imprimatur on that. And in fact, the whole notion of limiting development to residential development and only having commercial development in Pilgrim Hall and the retreat house just happened this last week. We're always playing catch-up.
I understand that. Well, I was
But,
just, it's this, thinking about the additional space is really what led me to
Yes,
that
and
next
those are
step.
excellent ideas, because I personally, and I think I said this last week, have a fondness for stables because I'm an equestrian. So I see Pilgrim Hall as a building that has just so many opportunities for different uses that would be really beneficial to the people who live in the apartments, so they don't have
Exactly.
to get in their car and drive.
Well, yeah, and I think, just looking at what we talked about at the last planning board, there's very little space allocated in that lower campus for the apartments. They're
Right.
they're kind of just wedged in there, and I've been there many times. I live right across the street, and when you think about more cars and more people, I just don't think there's enough. So I just bring that up now. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Give me the license to answer them or not, okay? If I can, I might, but, some of the answers might be subject to our discussions following this
Understood.
public comment.
John Despic, 195 Woodbury. Last night at the Select Board, I asked the question, how much does it cost to educate a school child, and how many school children are anticipated in the apartments? I didn't get an answer. We'll get back to you. Where does the responsibility for the financial analysis behind this whole project lie? Is it with the Planning Board or with the Select Board?
It's with the FinCom.
FinCom, okay.
So the way it will work is the planning board will make a recommendation with respect to this overlay district. The select board makes a recommendation, and the FinCom does a financial analysis, and they also make a recommendation.
And will that be made public before?
Oh, absolutely, it will be in the warrant. So, they will look at that very point.
Thank you. Second question, and maybe I'm missing something, so I apologize. As I recall, not that long ago, the planning board wanted to have either a whole plan for the campus in total or nothing. That was my understanding. Obviously, something has changed, or I misunderstood.
Well, at one point, the planning board had what we called illustrative plans as to how the campus could be developed, and the way that version of the overlay district was formulated, a developer could elect to follow the illustrative plans and have a smoother flight path to a special permit, or they could propose their own development scheme and then would have a special permit. But due to any number of circumstances, when this process was initiated again, we simplified it and removed any reference to those illustrative plans. So they're still on file at the planning board. Any developer who would like to look at them and get ideas about what great planning looks like could study them, but they are not part of this overlay district at this time. So at this point, any development on the campus would be following a proposal from a developer, and we would just go through the process that's set forth in the overlay district.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I urge all planning board members, if I say something that you don't agree with, pipe in, or if you have a better answer than I do, please just jump in.
Chairwoman of the board and board members, my name is Keith Doyle, 22 Lee Park. Thank you for your hard work on the zoning and planning work you've done. As a resident, I would like to say that I really think there's great benefit to the town in the zoning of the lower campus for the sale of the apartments to a buyer of that. I think the financial benefit to the town could be great. Also, regarding the traffic study and the capacity, I was thinking that between 2000 and 2015, I believe, and I'm not sure of this, but I believe the seminary was close to full capacity. So we know it did work traffic-wise, and as far as occupancy, I just wanted to bring that point up. But I, again, wanted to thank you for your work, and as a resident, very much in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Valerie Peck at 37 Miles River Road. I just have a really quick clarifying question as to the change in allowable uses, and wanted to understand that I know 55 and plus has been kind of a focus. Is that, I don't see that under your allowable uses anymore. Does that fall under a different category, or am I looking at it incorrectly?
I think, Emil, you can answer
It is
that.
in there as senior
Senior
housing. One of the changes we made, excuse me, at the advice of Sound Planner is to have our language tie in with the existing codes.
Okay.
So one of the reasons some of these building types, for example, 55 plus, is changed is that we wanted it to coordinate with what's already in the bylaws. So that use has not changed, it just has a different title to it, but it is called senior housing.
Okay.
So it has to comply with the senior housing bylaw
Okay,
in our code.
right, that was
Yep.
it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
My name is Lily Shaw on Highland Street. I have a question about the retreat house. I was there today. I just missed you when I came over. I'm concerned how the heritage landscape affects that zone where the retreat house is.
There's no building on the heritage landscape.
It's
The
just off of
retreat
it.
house remains. Its expansion up to 10% is subject to a special permit. But we are proposing, and it's again subject to planning board approval, that if the seminary were to leave that site, that there could be a commercial use of the retreat house. But the heritage landscape itself is not subject to any development at all. It's that one building
Okay.
that can be repurposed.
So what district? Is it the middle campus that includes the retreat house?
The heritage landscape includes the retreat house.
I thought you just told me it did not.
It does.
Okay, I heard you wrong.
I apologize.
No, no,
There's
I
one building
apologize.
in the heritage landscape, and that's the retreat house.
Okay,
Pilgrim Hall is in the middle campus.
okay.
And Pilgrim Hall, and then I believe the wastewater treatment
That's
plant
middle campus,
are the
yeah.
only buildings in the middle campus.
Right, I understand that. Now, Retreat House is not going to be zoned separately? You're using that as your main building for the seminary, and that's the plan, to continue that. This probably isn't planning board business, but I'm hoping that that building and property around it could be put on the National Register of Historic Places, given its connection to the town of Hamilton, in that the Mandel family
Yeah.
built that house, and they also built the community house for the community of Hamilton Wenham.
Yes, I used to work in historic preservation.
So did
and
I.
So, did you really? Well,
Yes.
hey, maybe you could start the ball rolling.
Well,
It-
we have to talk to
Yeah.
Dr. Sundquist about that, but
Yeah, you know,
it'd be a good thing to do.
if a building is on the historic register, then provisions with respect to how it's expanded and whatnot, but yes, it.
Yeah, there are different levels of protection or historic designation, and I'm sure it could be at least a local designation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
local designation.
I'm Linda Preston, 288 Highland Street. Didn't plan to talk tonight, but I'm impressed with everybody working so hard in the effort to bring two sides together for the common good of the seminary and our whole town community. And so I believe we can come to an agreement, and Lord willing, it'll happen at town meeting as well, where there is a good conclusion to this. And our heart's desires for many of us is to recognize all that the seminary has given to us since 1969, and the people it has trained up to go and spread the gospel all around the world and to contribute to the Hamilton Wenham communities. And so I thank you all. You're an inspiration, and I believe this is going to work as it should. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Bob Cavilla, 233 Woodbury Street. I just wanted to make a comment as an abutter. We've been to a lot of meetings over the years, and I feel like recently we had some good progress where it seemed like we were going to more of a transform the dorms into apartments and then minimize the commercialization. And now what I'm hearing recently, I just feel like we're getting pushed to commercialization over and over and opening this up to conversation again. And it's not where I thought we were headed as neighbors recently. So this is a little disconcerting to me on that front. Very residential area. I feel it's a slippery slope, and even like the town that I grew up on the South Shore, now it's skyscrapers.
Well, what the commercial uses are limited to the 3 smallest buildings on that campus.
So the green will never be developed,
Right.
or any additional structures.
In the heritage landscape, no additional structures.
The open green space,
The middle campus.
middle campus, yeah.
There's potential development there, but it would be residential.
So more development.
Well, it's potential development. We are limiting the density on the entire site to what it is now. So there could be development, but at no point is it going to exceed an FAR of 0.118.
1.8. Right.
Okay, but that's not really what I've been feeling recently, so.
Right, but I mean, the commercial development is small scale. I mean, the gatehouse is 2,500 square feet plus or minus, and Pilgrim Hall, I have that.
15,351.
So the idea, at least with respect to Pilgrim Hall, if there were to be some commercial uses, that they would really be most attractive to the occupants of the apartments, and you know, the thinking, at least my thinking, and it's not a given, but if there are some amenities there for them, they won't get in their car, they'll walk to Pilgrim Hall, and in that way, there'll be a reduced traffic rather than more traffic.
I apologize, I don't know the whole process, but that's just one potential, right? The other potential is 15 different small businesses moving into different offices?
No. The commercial development is limited to those 3 buildings, and all the remainder of the site will be residential development.
All right, thank you.
Oops, maybe I shouldn't have.
My name is David Horn.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
David Horn, 1 Howard Street, and I've been a resident here for 42 years. And I haven't been to a planning board, so I'm not privy to all the details here. But, so I can speak just broadly for residents at Hamilton, I think, for many of them. This just seems like a no-brainer to me. Increasing the tax base extends the formula for our need for low-income housing. It doesn't change the the character of a piece of property. It continues to be used as it's been used for years, walking dogs, extending all that formula. So I just think it's a wonderful thing that we could possibly agree on these things. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Chris Payne. I live at 205 Woodbury Street. I just wanted to say I'm very glad to hear that there's going to be a traffic study done. That's one of our biggest concerns, and I'll have to catch up on last night's meeting discussing the wastewater treatment plant. That's probably my biggest concern. I do have a question about what you were just talking about, the footprint of the space that's there. So it sounds to me, let me see if I can explain this in my own words and you can correct me if I'm wrong. The buildings that are there, the footprint of them won't be able to change, or if they do change, they'll have to be the same size, but the commercial use for them could change? Is that right?
Not quite.
Okay. I don't know what FAR means, and like some of these terms you're throwing around, I don't know.
Do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, the as of right for the dormitories, for example, we put a range there, minimum and maximum footprint, and maximum gross floor area on the entire building. We put those because they match the existing apartment buildings, so that if they were, for whatever reason, they were redesigned, that would be the same goal, to have virtually the same square footage and number of units on the site.
Okay.
Now, what's happened on the top of the hill, well, because that was initially as of right, because we are not having any commercial up there, that it has there are really two choices now on the top. Commercial being senior serviced housing, assisted living for seniors, that's one option, or residential. Those are the only two options on the upper campus.
Okay.
So one would be considered commercial, although it is a senior serviced. It's essentially residential, is that is the purpose of it.
Okay.
So there again, we look at the major building, Kerr Hall, for example, that has a footprint of 50,000 square feet, 49,000 plus.
Yep.
It has an overall gross square footage of 75,553 square feet.
Okay.
And so those are parameters that will stick to Kerr Hall. We can get into more description of this later, but we kind of pegged on some of the existing buildings and all the legacy buildings where there would be, those are known building footprints and known building sizes from a square footage. So we have a good idea that if we say you can expand it by 10%, we know what that means. The dormitories, which we're allowed to expand at 10%, apartments, I'm sorry, because the convenience of installing an elevator tower and stair tower adjacent to two, so it'd be three of those stair towers would take that many square feet to build 3 floors on each of the buildings, and one tower to cover two of each. So those were known things. And Pilgrim Hall, this has come up a couple of times, people worried about that going too commercial. The only reason we did that really is because it is limited in size. We have a good understanding of how those buildings can be used, and by minimizing the expansion on those, that is not something that could get out of hand, and in fact, it could be a huge amenity on that site. Many places that are predominantly residential offer amenities like that, a community center or some other convenience that really makes that site more viable as a
So like a
nice
convenience
neighborhood.
store or something?
Yeah.
like that?
So that was the idea, to introduce some small element that would be part of the natural living experience there on the campus. And that was the purpose we felt that to be. And as far as the retreat house is concerned, that, although not on a register, is one that we felt was historically significant because of the original owners and their contribution to the community. But that it is a trace of Hamilton's history that should be preserved, which is the reason we wanted to preserve the landscape right behind it, all around it. It was recognized by Essex Publication to be a heritage landscape. So because you can't fill up the entire site with buildings, we felt that we could designate what areas on the campus should be built on and what areas should not be built on. So that was really kind of the overall strategy on that. But buildings can be taken down, and if they rebuild it, it's all by special permit, and the amount of square footage is designated on the tables.
Okay. Okay, so if they were to knock down Pilgrim Hall and sell...
There'd be a maximum footprint, that's important.
Right.
There's a building height, that's very important.
Okay.
And a maximum square footage per building.
Right.
That's very important. And the FAR is the thing that measures all of that development.
And that would all come back here,
Yeah,
essentially? Okay.
Special permit.
Okay.
as a special permit, yeah.
Cool. Because I'm born and raised in Massachusetts, but I don't really need a Dunkin' Donuts there.
No, no.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Erickson. I'm a Hamilton homeowner. My husband and I have been here he bought our home 15 years ago. We're raising 2 small boys. And I think this is a wonderful plan. Really just want to say I think it's a win-win for our town, for the seminary, for our neighbors. This is a challenging time in our town in many ways. There are a lot of heated issues that are being talked about, and this is the first time I've really felt like, wow, there's some good news. This could be a way to generate really needed tax revenue without a significant change to the footprint, as you all have been describing. Really encouraged by what you just shared about Retreat House and all of that, and the historic impact of it. But my husband and I feel concerned every time we hear reports about we need an influx of cash, of tax revenue in this town to sustain what we have already. And there don't seem to be very many easy solutions for that, but this is one that feels like it would be a win for all involved. I also just want to speak to, as a mom of young sons, I really appreciate the diversity that the seminary brings to our community, and I'd like to see that preserved. Really thankful for that as my kids approach school age. I think this would be a win for all involved. So really, really appreciate all the hard work that's been done on both sides to pursue it, and just want to commend you all for that and for attempting to link arms and to work on something that would be beneficial for all. So thank you for your good work, and definitely has my support as a homeowner and a resident. So thank you.
Did you want to make some comments now? Oh, we have one more. You got bumped.
Hi. Amy Cavilla, 233 Woodbury Street. Marnie, as I was not here last night, I did have a quick question about the traffic study. Is it going to include the what-ifs, so beyond just the Pilgrim Hall, the Retreat House, the Gatehouse?
I think that I'm going to defer to Merwin on that, because I attended the select board meeting via Zoom, and I obviously am not a member of the select board. So following the discussion of the development agreement, I elected to have dinner at about 8:15 with my husband. So I heard discussion of the traffic study, but I didn't hear the ultimate outcome. I believe there was going to be some significant expenditure of money to expand the traffic study from what exists, but I will defer to Merwin to really clarify that. Obviously, if there were to be any substantial redevelopment of the site requiring a special
Right, including the middle campus, the entire green space that's there right now.
So if you recall
and the upper campus.
From the special permit process at 133 Essex, there was a very detailed traffic study with respect to that project. So at that time, you really dig deep. But I think that the traffic is, as I said, not something that we can actually regulate
For sure, but if you're creating dense housing in the area, then that will lead to more traffic, correct? So if you're saying, in addition to the commercial space, the apartments, we're also allowing for senior housing additional apartments possibly being
Well,
built
that
where the
would be-
disc golf is, all of that. So all of that will be included?
Well, well, what's included in the traffic study that the seminary and the town are contemplating, I can't speak to. But we won't know what the development is until we have a proposal. And if there is new construction, that, in a sense, presupposes that some of the existing buildings will be demolished. So it's not as if it's additive. So
Even if
there's
you're
that.
adding more people to the space?
Well, but say, for example, I'm pretty clear.
Even though the footprint, I see where you're saying with the
That
footprint.
55-plus housing generates less traffic than many other
True,
uses.
for sure. But if there are apartments, single family, or homes in which you're also zoning for, right?
No single-family homes, no.
No, but like townhouses in that green space, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
So that would add more people. Yes?
Well, one important thing is the use of the building. For example, if business had stayed on at the summit, at the upper campus, if that could be commercial, so to speak, and which would be business, office, professional, whatever, that is typically calculated at a much higher rate than residential. So by eliminating commercial
up
on the
there.
upper campus, for example, that's 166,000 square feet, which now, if you were to put a traffic number on, is probably 600 cars per peak hour, morning and evening. That's commuting time. That would drastically change by just saying we're doing all residential. So that will disappear. Now, what we can't say are what are the trips per day, somebody coming and going from their house, for example.
Sure.
That's kind of an unknown, but I think there are probably numbers on that, and that will come out in a study. But just taking that step is an enormous change in the potential for traffic around that area.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Madam Chair, before the seminary speaks, if there's no other public to speak, I just have two quick clarifications. Well, after the public is finished.
Hi. Phil Down, 185 Woodbury Street. I just have two questions. Can you guys clarify on the upper campus, on the use table, what uses are permitted?
Me to do that?
We are going to be discussing this use table extensively, but it will be residential uses, but there will be permissible accessory commercial uses. And, for example, if there were to be some type of assisted living or congregate care home, it's not uncommon in those facilities to have a little, grocery store where residents can buy toothpaste or milk, small. Maybe, just something so that the residents can, especially if they're elderly, they don't have to drive, they can access some of those types of amenities. That will be permissible by special permit.
So on the upper campus, from a use table standpoint, are you allowing commercial under a residential
It would
context?
be in the context of a residential building. So it would be a residential building, but it might have amenities so that people, especially if it were elderly, could access maybe a beautician once or twice a week. I know this from experience because my mother lived in a retirement community, and it had a restaurant where that was for the residents only. They could get their meals, one meal a day. They had a menu plan. And they did have, areas where people could exercise. They could pick up milk or just something that they forgot at the grocery store, just small. And I mean, closet size.
But, no, I understand, but are you permitting under the use table
I'll tell you what's allowed.
for
Yeah.
square footage of the existing buildings to be converted under an FAR basis to a commercial use such as?
No, you can't do that. The only things permitted on top of the hill, on the upper campus, are townhouses or senior housing. Those are the two options. The third one is a commercial, but it's assisted living for seniors only, something like a Riverbend over in Ipswich on Route 1A, something like that on the upper campus. Now, the other things that on the upper campus would be, and as Marty was saying, it could be an accessory there. You could have a small cafe or something as part of the residential development as an amenity for just the people who live in that particular area. There could be a public assembly, which is library, museum, art gallery, art, dance, or music studio up there, special permit. Trails are permitted by right. Possibly, the accessory uses up there could be a daycare centers, and accessory uses would have to be within a primary use on the upper campus. So these are not freestanding buildings. These are sort of built-in amenities, a daycare center, for example, or fitness health facility, an amenity for housing up there. A neighborhood community center or parks or playgrounds would be permitted up there. So those are the only things that can occur on the upper campus.
I may be using the term commercial in the wrong context. I don't mean commercial like an office building. Commercial, whether it's a for rental, senior housing, are you permitting the FAR that's intact there today to be converted to a assisted living facility?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So
that's one option, but it could be, it's not up to us to decide what goes on the upper campus, but that is an option in the allowable uses.
That's an additional density for the upper campus that's not permissible under current zoning.
No.
If I buy the upper campus and knock it down and build 350 assisted living facility, that's what you're saying would be permitted?
A 350?
Stay under the existing square footage in the FAR?
No, no, we've stipulated the size. It's the maximum for the building is 75,000 square feet for an assisted living facility. Again, that would be typical with the one on Ipswich, the Riverbend, residents at Riverbend. So, and the footprint would be 50,000 on the first floor, 25 on the second. That, for example, could fit into Care Hall if a developer were to find that to be, something that is doable. That would be a reuse of that building. So a potential developer could purchase that building. It is allowed to be there as of right, but how you use it is special permit. So what we're asking is that if you're going to use it for something other than, you have to use it for something other than it's currently used. That's because it is a business, educational business assembly. But if you need to repurpose it to one of the ones that we do allow, which is either residential or assisted living for seniors. So you could theoretically get that 75,000 square feet on the upper campus. You could, if you were to take down the buildings, the wings that come out to the south of that toward the hillside, you'd be left with 50,000 square feet there. You could actually put a 25,000 addition on the southern side of that, reach your 75,000 mark. So you're not exceeding the size of that current building, and that is a maximum. Then you could theoretically do that, create more desirable spaces in that 25,000 square foot addition. And there could still be other development of a residential nature on the top of the campus. So the buildings are not going to expand in size. That's one key here. No building is going to get bigger than it is right now. We're not allowing multifamily housing on the upper campus, which is like the current apartments.
Well, but it is multifamily, just age restricted on the upper campus. I'm a developer, so I'm asking these questions specifically.
Well, it's a commercial. There's a...
Understood. I understand my question.
You can only get 80 beds, I think, in something like...
I just want to point out that it's an additional density use, which is an age restriction.
Yeah.
Which is outside some of our conversations around limiting the multifamily to the lower campus. That is a now permitted use on the upper campus. That would likely be the only logical thing to build up there. So I just want to point it out to the group.
Yes.
And my second quick question, because I know I've probably not taken 3 minutes, but been listening, is has any of this dialogue been discussed with MEPA?
With?
The MEPA agency, due to the size of the potential development here?
To what agency?
Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act, the MEPA?
Oh, no.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
So just a couple quick clarifications. First of all, the board received a letter from a resident on Martell Road, and it mentioned my name in the letter. And the only reason my name was mentioned in the letter is it came into my personal email, and I just redirected it to Mark. So she mentioned my name, so I neither elicited that letter nor supported it, so it just came through my email. So that's just a clarification. And then the second clarification is regarding National Register listings for the retreat house. National Register listing is a very nice thing to have. It's just important to remember that National Register listing by itself protects a building from state or federally funded alterations. It does not protect it from privately funded alterations. So it's not really a very broad protection for a building. There are other protections out there, but to lean on a National Register listing is not a smart way to protect a building. Those are the only two clarifications. Thank you.
The other clarification that's really important to keep this in mind is that this overlay district specifically does not affect the seminary's Dover Amendment rights. So under the Dover Amendment and Section 10.7 of our bylaw, the seminary, because it has religious and educational purposes, has more license to do development than any other entity of similar size or business purpose. So they retain those rights. So a worst-case scenario would be that they decided that in the heritage landscape that they needed an apartment. How that would go through the planning board is up in the air, but they could potentially do that. Would they do that? I would hope not. And I believe that the select board and the seminary are contemplating some type of a use restriction for the heritage landscape. But I think that the seminary is operating in good faith and would not start constructing buildings at random or attempting to do so. I don't think it would be I don't think it would facilitate monetizing the property in the event they were to ever leave. But I want to make that clear that in no event is this document an attempt to in any way circumscribe their Dover Amendment rights. Those are that derive from state law, and we would not be in a position to alter them in any way, even if we wanted to.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members, Planning Board. As I always do, I express appreciation on behalf of the seminary for the remarkable work, especially over the last few weeks. But actually, this is the end of a really long road. We've been meeting together for 3 years, I think. So this is we express our deep appreciation for it. I'm just going to say a few things. I've appreciated some of the comments from the abutters, particularly with respect to the commercial. As you can imagine, that's a substantial concession on the part of the seminary, and for the planning board to consider that. It reduces the commercial footprint by about 90% or more. That obviously won't give us an opportunity to use the buildings in that way, but we, as one person remarked, there has been a lot of sort of discussion and disagreement in town, and we want this as a seminary, we'd love this to be an exception to that. That is, as a town, we can rally around. And we think that removing the commercial really removes one of the biggest impediments for this. So we're glad to see us moving forward on that. As the chair, as you mentioned, that the wastewater treatment isn't really something that you do, so I would refer anybody who's listening the first time. We have posted, or the planning board and the select board has posted a deck basically of slides having to do with the having to do with the wastewater treatment plant. The keys there, it's not your backyard leaching facility in Title V. This is a highly regulated. It's inspected every day. There's an independent engineering firm that's up there every day for several hours, every weekday, taking tests and reviewing it. There are 6 visits each day by on-site personnel to inspect it. There are monthly reports submitted to the town Board of Health, and then also to the state DEP. So this is a very well-managed, very well-run wastewater treatment plant. As well, the seminary's put in close to $1 million of improvements, and you'll see some slides, and it's in the deck as to what those have been, and try to mitigate any of the impacts that the treatment plant has. the transportation analysis that we did, that's posted as well. If you haven't had an opportunity to read it, it's worth reading. We brought in an engineering firm that's well regarded in the state, Howard Stein Hudson, and last night the select board did ask us to enhance that further and look at things like safety and access and that sort of thing. The bottom line of the report, as you'll read it now, is that the analysis of the use that the seminary has made of the property over the years, particularly the high water marks, will never be reached again with the planning board's current zoning proposal. So it just will never get that kind of traffic again. That's the end of the story. In fact, I think you'd have to build something like 6 times as many things as can be built there. So what people sometimes forget is a graduate school is a highly intensive use. There are a lot of cars that go up there. There are a lot of people that have lived there. The apartments have been there now for 40, 50 years. So it's not that it's an unused place. It's heavy use. That use is now being reduced, and then but the apartments don't change anything. They'll still be there. The amount that we'll spend is up to $20,000 on that traffic analysis. So we'll be providing that to the select board, and of course the planning board will have access to that as well. A couple of clarifications, and I apologize if these were addressed, but as I was looking at the tables, I know we had talked about last time with the heritage landscape and the natural zone, putting in a sort of carve out for utilities and roadways and sidewalks and that sort of thing. And I'm not sure if that's still in there, but I think it would be helpful to make sure that the bylaw is clear that those kinds of things are exceptions in both of those areas, because they currently exist. There are roadways in the natural zone, and there are utilities, et cetera, lighting, et cetera. So if we could just add that back in to those two. And then I think you had in there that there could be a guard booth in the natural zone, which we'd like to make sure that that's allowed. That really would be down on 133 at the 130 Essex rather. So if we could put that in, just that be allowed under special permit, we'd appreciate that. And I didn't get a chance to see, so I'm asking a question as well, but whether is the steeps, are they now the 20% and above, or the steeps also include 15?
It's 15.
15.
And I believe in Table 2, which Emil revised late this afternoon, we did add back special permit, roads, sidewalks, sanitary facilities, electrical services, lighting, and a small security station at off-site road entrances. So that was added back.
Okay, so existing would be grandfathered, and then these would be with special permit?
Right.
I see, okay. Well, then I would ask whether the 15 takes a lot more space out of that, so whether the planning board can reconsider and just have it 20% and above would be used, but I'll leave that to you.
Well, let me just clarify that, if I may. In the identification, let me just, rather than guess, I'm going to give you the precise terminology. It's the special design process. In submitting an application, an applicant would have to identify 15% slopes.
Okay.
That's where that comes from. So most of the 15% slopes are, kind of buried in 20% slopes and 25% slopes. It's
true.
all part of steep, okay?
It's steep, yeah.
The other thing I would add is that the analysis that the board went through a year or so ago with the illustrative plans, those illustrative plans automatically steered clear of the steep slopes, and we were able to get the density that was desired without disturbing those steep slopes. So in other words, all of this was considered as a package originally. And so this is not taking away from what you see in the charts. It's just making sure that it goes in the right place. And it will actually save you money if you steer clear of those things. So.
And you could explain why it will save you money, because if you try and build on steep slopes, you're going to have to do terracing, and your stormwater runoff has to be controlled, and that means you've got all sorts of engineering issues or potential engineering
Parking
issues.
requires gymnastics, access roads require gymnastics, you're into expensive retaining walls. So it's always cheaper to stay away from the steep slopes and easier.
We
And
have your
again,
best interest at heart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that. Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry. Yeah, my name is Myrwin Walters. I'm a longtime resident of the town, but I'm also representing the seminary. I make one comment about open space. I'm not raising it again, and we've been through this now considerably, but I think it's helpful for others to know, the abutters and others, that it's a 100-acre parcel, and now with the heritage landscape in the natural zone, that's about 40 acres. So the requirement of the zone is that 40% be open space. That 40 acres is accepted from the other 60, and that those 60 now are also subject to the 40%. So there's a pretty generous amount of open space here by the time any development got through. So I think people, when you add in the steep slopes, there's a very limited area that can be developed on this. In terms of the retreat house, given that it's a concern that's been raised tonight, President Sundquist went out and raised special funds, a significant amount of special funding, for the purpose of renovating and really restoring the interior of the retreat house and the exterior. They've relocated all of the administrative functions there. The president's office is there. And it's just a remarkable job. So they're putting their money where their mouth is in terms of wanting to retain that space and maintain it as a beautiful place and bringing it back really to some of the historic beauty. One other thing that we had put in there, and I don't know that we've had the conversation with the board with you, is that I put in, one of the plans has a buffer, shows the buffer, but it shows that there are areas where there isn't a buffer. And I would ask the planning board to give that a little more serious consideration. It was deleted from a draft, but we between the language, I know we talked about this, but between the language in the bylaw talking about what's allowed in the buffer or not, we thought just a belt and suspenders to eliminate any concerns. There would be areas that are not part of the buffer, so the buffer would be where the buffer plan shows it. And so it's in the deck that we sent recently. So that's just something, again, so areas, for example, that wouldn't be in the buffer would be the entrance. And so it allows us to not worry about if there needed to be expansion of the entrance for safety or what have you, that we wouldn't run into a zoning problem for that. So again, just ask if you could give that some more thought. I won't go through, if you listen to the select board last night, the chair went through a number of really other reasons why he was supportive of the development agreement and of the overlay district. There's so many reasons that are beneficial to the town, but I won't recite them again here tonight. But it's worth a listen to hear him as he goes through them. And the two big ones, obviously, the development agreement gives the town quite a bit of control and some benefits, and as well, this zoning district provides the town with a tremendous amount of control. It resides with the planning board for anything that happens in the future. A couple comments on the GPOD. Our suggestion, we're being assisted by Brent McDonald from Nutter, and in talking through that issue with him, he's suggesting that it's reasonable, given that the GPOD, the point of that is to keep septic systems from leaching into the groundwater, because the uniqueness of the site, having its own wastewater treatment plant, all of the wastewater in the future is going to have to be through the wastewater treatment plant, that simply exempt it from the GPOD. It's a totally new district. It's not looking at any particular owner. It's saying here's a new district. So the suggestion would be to just exempt it from the GPOD for purposes of making sure that this bylaw is not immediately in conflict with another overlay district. We appreciate the concern about open space for the apartments. We've been talking to the the buyers about that recently as well. And we understand there are some open space requirements that the planning board has put into the zoning district. We would just like to see it specified that we can use appropriate portions of the natural zone, not all of which is wetlands, and the heritage landscape to fulfill some of those requirements, and also that an easement, recordable easements would be sufficient as well, so it wouldn't necessarily have to be a fee interest owned by the sellers, but rather that we could achieve that, because we're already talking about that anyway, keeping in mind that probably half of those apartments are going to be lived in by our own students. So there's a playground up there, and the goal is to continue that, obviously, and then the new people coming in would have that. So if we could make sure the bylaw provides for those kinds of flexibilities, and then, you know, if it gets developed, if any of that area gets developed, that we can just reallocate area for that use.
Could I just interrupt?
Sure.
I think the bylaw actually accommodates that as it's written now, because there is a provision for waiving that requirement or modifying it. So when that issue arises, there's flexibility there already. So if you were to say, well, we don't have the space here, but we have it here and we're providing it through an easement, I would surmise that that would not be looked on unfavorably.
And the uses for the heritage landscape and the
They include
natural zone?
parks and playgrounds.
Parks and playgrounds, okay.
So that's provided for already.
Yeah. Then we did note that there's, we were a little confused about it, and we just want to know if it's the case that that the site plan review would be required in this instance where the apartments are going to be going from apartments owned by the cemetery to apartments owned by another owner. We don't want hiccups in the whole process, given that that's sort of the trigger for this thing. So whether that can be an abbreviated site plan, or that we have understanding that this isn't going to be an issue going forward, that the site plan review, or whether it could be accepted from that.
I don't feel comfortable answering that question. I mean, in some respects, we have to, this whole bylaw has to be run by our town council, but I don't believe there would ever be a circumstance where we said there's an exception to site plan review, because the purpose of a site plan review is to make sure that any potential development is safe, that there's access for fire trucks and that type of thing. So let's just defer that, and if you have any authority for eliminating that, you can let us know. But I suspect that's not going to be the case. But under site plan review, as you know, is not provided for under state law. It's a creature of, it's just a creature that exists in Massachusetts. But there's no mechanism, in fact, it's impossible to deny a site plan review application unless the application itself is deficient and doesn't have all the information that's required. So, for example, the planning board frequently has site plan review applications, and it's just an opportunity for the planning board to make very constructive suggestions that improve the safety of a proposed project. And that happens not infrequently. I mean, even the trustees came in to put a parking lot at Appleton Farm, and I know Jonathan had some suggestions that improved that parking lot. So it's an opportunity, really, to make sure that it's going to be a safe, accessible site, and it should be looked more as, can we get some help from the planning board, as opposed to they're going to hold us up and it's going to cost us a ton of money. It might save you money in the long run.
That's always great if that can happen.
Pardon me?
That would be great if that can happen. Appreciate that. One other thing, so that we talked about it last time, and I talked with Brent about it again. That language, it was his suggested language about access over different zones to access other zones. And this may be something that the planning board may want to run by town council, but his concern was that there's some case law that actually creates a problem that you can't, it's not simply something that can be achieved by the landowner through easement. So I'm happy to get more information on that to you, and if you wanted to share with town council. But that's a very technical thing, but because there's going to be a heritage landscape, a natural zone that you're going through, that there needs to be recognition that traffic and roads can be used to go through those. So that was his concern, and
And ask him, because my sense of that was that it should be in the development agreement.
yeah, it's. Why don't I get that to the board? But it looks like it may be a zoning problem rather than a contractual or a land right problem. So
Related to that, may I just clarify the buffer zone question that is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Please.
So if you read the current wording in the bylaw, in the buffer zones as proposed, the 50-foot buffer zones, it talks about being able to cross through those as required with streets and sidewalks, and repairing and maintaining the existing streets and sidewalks, and also crossing through those as required with utilities. So I think that your concerns, to my mind, have been addressed already in the wording. So I'm looking at page, I'm looking at section 9.9.6.2, page 4 and 5, so parts C and D of that section.
yeah, and the concern there is the first, the dependent clause there, subject to planning board approval, and that, that's just, we'd rather not have that concern in terms of the entranceway, et cetera. So that there would be, are you talking about the plan and saying let's exempt certain portions of the perimeter from the buffer?
Under the special permit process, it talks about the buffers and it talks about what's permitted to happen in those. So it acknowledges that you'll need to penetrate those buffers, but rather than delete the buffers in those areas, it's much more prudent to leave the buffer and have these clauses that say you may pass through them with different types of very specific needs, roads, infrastructure.
I think you may be referring to a drawing that you submitted, not at the last meeting, but the previous one. Mark, I don't know if you still have that.
I was looking for it, I can't find it.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of it. A submittal two meetings ago from Myrwan on the, when he first, we asked him to identify the areas of the individual districts on the campus.
It's a series of 5 maps, I believe.
Yeah, there were 5 maps.
Yeah. 5 colored maps.
So I think that's the one, I think it's the properties above Bridge Street where we had a buffer, and I think you had taken the color out of the buffer zone.
Well, that one, because there's a 50-foot buffer.
50-foot buffer.
On it now, right? So there's an existing, the seminary has the benefit of a 50-foot buffer that extends onto the.
On the private, yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the road just comes right up.
I believe
in the
it's
buffer.
map 4. Is that right, Marvin?
Yeah, if you keep going down, I think. Yeah, there you go.
Keep going.
That's it right there. So the white areas are buffer, and where there isn't white on the perimeter, that would be where we'd say let's exempt it from buffer.
So for example, if we take the heritage landscape, the tennis court deletes the buffer there, and I think that's antithetical to what we're trying to do here. Again, if you needed to have a septic in that area, you could put it in that area, but rather than delete the buffer still holds as a need, but you can have utilities pass through these areas.
Yeah, I think, the ones that seem to me to be most reasonable for not having the buffer is the entranceway and the roadway up, because it's all, it's in the NZ anyway, but it's also, it doesn't make sense really to have a buffer there. It would encompass the entire road, and then the entrances and exits that we had, and then we carved out a portion of the along the wastewater treatment plant. We've planted about 20 new trees there now between us and Woodbury. But it seems like those, if you can bring that down a little, Mark, can you, just to show, yeah, so the entrance off of Woodbury.
Scroll down.
Scroll down, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Other way.
The other way, there we go. Yeah, so on the right side there, you see the MC, you see down there's the square, which is the wastewater treatment plant, and then the entrance in from Woodbury a little bit lower. So it would just seem to us to make sense that that would not be in the buffer area just because of, components for the wastewater treatment plant, et cetera. So it was the entrances in that area that we thought particularly it would help clarify things to not put those subject to the buffer regulations.
So, again,
I'm puzzled because-
C says existing, let's see,
It's actually D. It
D,
says
yes. So it talks about existing
installation-
infrastructure can stay there.
It says installation, maintenance, repair, and replacement of lighting, wastewater, treatment components, and other utilities, electric data, is permitted in and across buffer areas except as otherwise specifically limited in this bylaw. And it, as far as I can recall, it's not limited in any way. So you have the relief you're seeking right in here already.
Again, it puts those areas subject to any buffer restrictions. And so while we might agree now as to whether something is meant to be excluded or not, future developers, future planning boards might take different position because it's clearly intended to be a section that regulates the buffer. And given that the areas that we've designated on the plan are going to service, multiple owners, at least 2 to start with, and perhaps 3 or more, that you can't prejudice one owner by requiring other things from another owner. So we just thought, let's eliminate that concern. I'm not sure what the real problem with it is. Just eliminate those entrances from the buffer area, and the rest can stay if that's what the
intention of the buffer creates a clarity that you're trying to, as much as possible, maintain a green buffer so that you're separating yourself from the abutters and the abutters from yourself. And it's really antithetical to remove that interest instead of leaving it there to show that you need to marry the interests. You need to, if you upgrade the septic system, if you change a sidewalk, if you change a road, the need is still there to buffer. We don't want to eliminate that need. There needs to be a dialogue between the need for a buffer and the need for the utility. So I would say that the buffer should stay, and this wording holds, and it serves the need.
And I'll add that a 50-foot buffer is actually pretty generous. The buffer
very generous.
State bylaws
Very
over
generous.
100, and it's much more restrictive. So I think you're lucky to get 50.
And it's really where you want a buffer.
Yeah,
right there.
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, as you understand that the entire entrance roadway is in the buffer, right?
No, the first 50 feet is in the buffer.
I think it's closer than that. I mean, there's just a bit of green space, and then the stone wall. See it there? If you extend that down, you can see how it encompasses most of the roadway.
Yeah, again, that, to my point, the idea would be that means that the intent here, the original intent, the original agreement is, for example, everything to the left of that roadway is sensitive. And if you make an improvement, if you make a sidewalk, what that says to both parties, all future parties, all parties in this room, is that if you want to make a sidewalk, a guard booth, a water line, a new utility that doesn't exist yet, hasn't been conceived, it would go on the other side of the road, away from the abutters. So it creates a clarity of intention here. So rather than eliminate it, I think that the wording is very clear what the mutual intents are here. We want to allow you to make your improvements, but it prioritizes, in this particular case, the improvement on the right side of the road instead of on the left side of the road.
And then we'd be in front of the Conservation Commission because
yes,
there's
indeed.
water
Yes,
on that
but
side of the road.
that'd be the process. That would be the process.
We're trying to avoid that.
Well,
and it seems like
that's how bylaws work. A lot of times they're in conflict, and you balance them. They're constantly pushing against each other, and you find a creative solution that marries the interests. That's just how bylaws work.
Well, I appreciate it. I think I've been heard, so I appreciate that. So I would close. We of course need to look really closely at the most recent revisions just to make sure we understand them all. But we very much appreciate the work, and if there are any questions, answer them. Otherwise, I yield my time. I appreciate it.
Okay, at this point, I think recognizing that we're going to have further public hearings on November 4th, I would really like to turn this meeting over to the planning board to finish its discussion. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to November 4th.
We're going to continue talking about it, though.
Pardon me?
think you
We're
can't-
going to continue talking about it more like a...
It's a workshop.
Actually, and then...
Stop talking about it.
What I will have to do is reopen the public hearing for the limited purpose of considering increasing the fees that are payable to the planning board and our regulations. But is anyone here to speak to either the fees or the regulations? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, so we can continue the hearing to November 4th at 7 p.m.
I need a second.
But by the way, continuing the hearing
The public
under the
hearing.
discussion, it means we can't discuss it further.
No,
Means
we
can't
can't.
discuss this project further.
We can, because we're going to respond to some of these comments, and we have to finalize our work product. So as soon as we can finalize our work product and put it up on the,
It's when you close the meeting that you can't talk.
you can't talk about it
You can
after the
continue
close.
to the next meeting, because we have to do work before the next
We
meeting.
have to
The
talk
public
about
comment has ended, and now it's time for us to do our job.
I just think it's,
No, it's okay.
You can ask Mark about the procedure.
It's the way it works.
Procedure.
I mean, Mark, my experience has been the project gets discussed amongst the planning board as part of the public hearing.
Oh,
The public speaking, being allowed to speak during the public hearing is a clarification, but the public hearing itself, once you close it, we can't discuss it.
We're not closing it.
You're just motion to close the public hearing.
No, we're continuing it.
Continuing it.
We're
Sorry,
continuing.
to continue, but to continue it means we can no longer discuss it at this meeting.
No, I think we can.
I don't think we can.
Yeah.
We can, because obviously, what if somebody made a
Continuing it meaning we're closing the discussion for this.
We're closing the public discussion.
Continued.
I think it's a matter of whether or not you're letting the public speak for the purpose.
Look, we want to hear what you think about these tables, so just, shh, we got work to do.
Okay, it's fine, it's fine. I just-
So
You might
I will
ask,
take a roll.
you might ask them to clear the room.
Well, I would,
It's not a private, it's not
Ladies and
going to an
gentlemen.
executive session or anything like that.
yeah, no, it's all public.
You can't close the public, you can't continue the hearing and still talk about it.
Do you want me to?
You can't.
Keep talking about it and then continue the public hearing.
And they can stay and listen if they want.
I don't think you can continue it.
Yeah, this is the important part.
I don't think we ever got a second on continuing.
Right, we need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote. So when I call your name, please indicate your assent to the continuance of the public hearing. So Pat Norton,
I agree we should continue discussing it, but I still think if we continue, we can no longer discuss it at this meeting.
we can get clarity on that.
All right.
Jonathan Poor,
Jonathan Poor, aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
Emil Dahlquist, aye.
Beth Herr,
I am trying to look it up right now to see what Pat's talking about, but
Marcy
yes.
and Marnie
yeah,
Crouch. Aye.
Yes.
As a practical matter, Pat, we never finalized our tables. I mean, we
I totally get it. I know we have to discuss more about the project. I just,
yeah. So,
I think what Pat is saying is he felt that we should continue the meeting at the end of the meeting instead of in the middle of the meeting. Is that correct, Pat?
I think you have to continue the hearing after you're done discussing it.
oh.
Right, so that would have been at the end of the meeting, not that we're not going
End
to
of the meeting,
continue
End
it.
of the
It
agenda.
was just an order, a process.
So, yeah, I think what you're essentially doing is closing the public comment portion of the
I
hearing.
closed the public comment portion of it, not the hearing per se. We've now continued it.
It's still a public meeting, and
It's still a
they can
public
come back
meeting.
at the next meeting. And
And they can come back. I wanted to get it finalized so that we can have further discussion with the public at the next meeting, because I think some of the people that were here didn't have the benefit of final tables. So I may have made a procedural error by not continuing at the close, but nonetheless, no one was asked to leave. So we'll have another public hearing. So I don't think there's any prejudice. Would you agree with that, Darcy? No prejudice?
I would say there was no prejudice.
Because really, we want to finish this up so that people can talk about what we've decided in these tables. So just quick question, does anyone have any issues with the text? Because if not, we will proceed to look at the tables. Tables 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
The bylaw language.
Pardon me?
The language in the bylaw you're talking
Right.
about. Yep.
The actual text of the bylaw as opposed to the contents of the table.
Yep. I thought we closed it out last meeting.
Pardon me?
I thought we closed that out last meeting.
Table 1?
No,
I think
the
there were
text.
changes.
language.
Oh, yeah.
There were changes,
Just minimal changes. If you look at pages 2 and 3, that's where the changes are. So I summarized them at the commencement, but they're really quite straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good? All right. So I would ask if anybody had any issues with Table 1.
I think last time where we ended the discussion, if I'm not wrong, was nuance of the words reuse.
Reuse, we've now tried to use repurposing in some instances.
Okay.
So it's reuse of the existing apartments. They're just
Which is not a
still-
use change.
It's not a use change. So we tried to use the word repurposing if there was the potential for a change of use. So
Yep.
if you recall from the last meeting,
Yep.
any repurposing of the buildings required a special permit.
Yep.
And that's in there now. And the seminary, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, acceded to that, but they requested in exchange for that concession, or the recognition that that process would be time-consuming, that we permit commercial use in Pilgrim Hall and the Gatehouse. And then, if you all agree to that, that's great. And then the other thing that Emil and I talked about, the retreat house, and we thought there was no reason why we couldn't add a commercial use for the retreat house in the event the seminary were to leave the campus and no longer have any use for that building. There was no real provision for what would happen to it under those circumstances. So we thought that a commercial use of that building by right might be worthwhile because it would have the potential for a commercial use. And we might have to be a little more specific about that when we go to the table of use regulations, but that's the theory. Any issues? No? Okay, let's go to Table 2. Table 2 is, this is the hard one.
Where's that echo? Where's that echo coming from?
I think someone on my Zoom. Gonna mute folks.
Oh, yeah, it's, well, John Sissel. There you go. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So what we made clear here is that the existing buildings could repurpose to allow uses allowable in this table. And those uses allowable in the table are residential uses. And we use the term residential a little bit loosely because the congregate care, the assisted living type facility, although maybe technically commercial or institutional, is in substance a residential use.
So just to clarify, on the lower campus, if a developer found that the code issues were too much to renovate it and wanted to demo and rebuild, would that be permitted by special permit or not permitted?
The multifamily?
Yeah.
My understanding is they could rebuild it, provided it's the same square footage,
The same footprint.
same footprint.
My understanding, and this is from John Witten, is that in an overlay district such as this one, which is eliminating the underlying zoning, which is by right, we have to have one by right use in this overlay district. And we always determined that that would be the apartments. But because they're going to be deemed conforming, but I don't think that one could tear them down and put something up, put something else up. And if they tried to put something else up, I mean, there would be an uproar and we would have to amend the bylaw. But, I mean, for example, if they tried to put some type of commercial development there.
Well, yeah.
And that wouldn't be the seminary, that would be, you know, a purchaser
Yeah.
from the owners of the apartments.
So the repurposing of Pilgrim Hall and the Gatehouse is allowed by right. But if you were to expand them beyond their footprint, up to the limits that were set forth, 10% and 35%, that would
Special
be
permit.
special permit requirement. Got it.
And we did add the retreat house to that. Do you have a problem with that? Adding a permissible commercial use for the retreat house?
Retreat.
Yeah. I thought that's what you wanted. It could stay, probably.
We want it to stay as a residential home, we can, because our president will live there.
Okay, let's think how this.
Can you restate what Myron said? Because I couldn't quite hear him.
Yeah.
Well, we closed the public hearing.
No, it's,
No, we didn't close it, we continued it.
The rules, you might as well let them talk.
But it also needs to be heard in the recording, so I would suggest going to the mic, please.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Marlon Walters again for the seminary. Just noting that the gatehouse is currently used as a residence, and we'd like that to be able to be continued. And we had talked about retreat house. I think you indicated that might be residential as well, right? So,
Right,
I don't know if that's in the table right now.
it's not,
Okay.
yeah.
Pilgrim Hall, do you have a problem with residential at Pilgrim Hall?
no.
No, it's,
Okay.
but,
So those would be permitted, okay.
yeah.
A way of resolving that.
No, I got to work on that to get the language in there. I think I can work it out. More notes on that.
Is this an appropriate time to talk about some of the mechanisms that might allow the apartments to have some additional open space? Myron, you were talking about maybe some easements or something like that, so how you would structure that?
I think that perhaps that should await
Okay.
the next meeting.
Next,
I will try and paraphrase what he said, and that was that if there is to be additional open space for the apartments,
Yep.
that it could be provided either in the middle campus or the heritage landscape through some type of easement agreement with the owners of the apartments.
okay, just a
Or
related
even
question.
in the natural zone.
A related question is if ran out of parking in any of those campus areas, in any of the apartment areas, what would be the solution for addressing
Parking,
lacking parking or dumpster space?
site plan review.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand it.
Well, I think that's really,
Well, that's why then rebuilding it completely as opposed to staying with the building as of right. Rebuilding it would have to be a special permit then.
Yep.
right, we should add that too. I
That should be
guess.
made clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think it's also, that's another reason to maintain the 40% open space requirement in that district, because it's too hard to tie it to something else.
Yeah, no,
It's too hard to identify a location that would be impactful for that
Yeah.
district.
And also
Other districts.
part of that 40% is the common open space requirement of 500 square feet per unit.
Yep.
So if you look at C and D,
Yep.
that's got 40 units, that would require 20,000 square feet, quarter acre,
Yep.
as common open space to be used by the tenants in that particular combination of apartments. So each apartment unit then would have to have a comparable common open space. Again, that could be part of the 40%, that's not in addition to,
No.
but it's essentially non-paved.
Yeah, upland area.
Upland
Can't
area.
include wetlands, it can't
Yeah.
include any existing restrictions, it can't
Yeah.
include.
Yeah.
these apartments have always been, and maybe this is a fundamental error on our part that's just bled through this whole process, is they've always been kind of considered separate and apart, and they've been prioritized because the thought here is if 25% of the units are affordable, then all 209 units are eligible for inclusion in the subsidized housing index. And that is such an enormous benefit to the town that we haven't really criticized the use of these A&R lots to accomplish that purpose.
Yeah, in a sense, we
sort of
sort
have
of
a-
went backwards because we did the A&Rs just drawing a circle around the apartment buildings without considering actually the build-out in terms of all the other requirements that are on top of that. And now we're trying to make it work. Where could that happen and how could we do it? So, the ideal would be to move the boundary of the A&R lots a little bit to accommodate this kind of 40% open space. And then that would lower the FAR to make it more comfortable. I know that a couple of us are really concerned about just simply movement around the site. I know that you've been using it as dormitories, but this is going to be a permanent dwelling for people, not students. And,
The problem now is that making those kinds of changes at this point in time
yeah,
jeopardizes the whole process.
yeah, I know. So
We can't do it.
Yeah,
If we were to try and do it, we would never be able to make,
that's why I wanted to just discuss it creatively so that it doesn't jeopardize the speed at which we move forward or the, details, but just to make sure that we have some creative ideas around it. I, for myself, went over to look at A and B this evening and determined that it looks as though you could get some sidewalks in there into the building and around the buildings without losing parking and you'd only lose a little bit of open space, and you wouldn't be in the wetlands, but it'd be tough. It's tight. It's so tight, but it looks like it can be done. I was concerned about safety, but it looks like the safety piece you can eke by. The dumpster's in a really odd place. It's right at the gateway to the apartments, so it's just so tight, and we're trying to help you manage to success here. We're not trying to obstruct.
Yeah.
Not to mention the A&R lot, but the districts are drawn differently between what we're calling the different, are we using, whose maps are we using?
Their A&R maps.
We're using their map. So when you say A&R maps, that's the district, those are the
Yes.
district maps?
Yep.
Okay, got it,
Yep.
got it.
Well, we now have full maps. What they provided us now are bearings and distances to define all of the district perimeters or boundaries.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's new information.
We're adopting that.
We're adopting that because it's stamped.
Yep.
And how we get that in the bylaw, I'm not sure. It's up to Mark to figure that out. What is the district map going to be? We made reference to our district map, but I think that was really for working purposes.
Yeah.
And we need something official now.
Yep.
So if we take maybe the drawing that you had up there that just identified the districts, and as long as that information was available, and how, that one, whether that doesn't define now the districts, but we have the data that does define it on a bigger map. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out,
Yeah,
but
all I can say is the bylaw has provisions that permit the planning board to waive the amount of open space and to also waive the public space provisions. So we can do that for these apartments, but it would be much better to go to your creative solutions of providing these apartment dwellers with more.
Some sort of safety valve, and it could actually act in the seminary's best interest. If a developer starts doing due diligence and they realize there's no place to put the dumpster or they can't get on the extra parking spaces they need, you don't want to be jeopardizing your process here. And I'm just trying to think creatively here. What can be done to create a little bit of a relief valve?
Right.
because if those buildings were to come down and be rebuilt, you could not build them back that way because it's a code violation.
Right. Well, see, I just made a note. We have dwelling multifamily permitted by right in the lower campus. We have to change that multifamily existing structures permitted by right. Multifamily new construction, special permit. You might not get a special permit.
Right, or a fraction of the number of units.
Be a fraction,
It would be a fraction of the number of units.
You've also got, you've got fresher bylaws in the, Wetlands Protection Act and all sorts of things that, not to mention the GPOD. Yes.
With respect to the GPOD, my recollection is that Pat Reffert said something about the wellhead being capped
Yeah, he did say that.
somewhere.
But-
And Mark,
Yes,
can
but
you
it-
look into that?
Yeah, we should check that, but it doesn't erase that
Doesn't
bylaw.
erase the GPOD.
But it could
That's in addition to the
mitigate
GPOD.
somehow.
Yeah.
I thought he was intimating that it would take it out of the
Well,
GPOD.
No, it
wouldn't.
wouldn't. No, that's a soil condition, I believe.
yeah,
And,
It's a
and,
soil condition.
it's the well head that they overlapped completely in this whole area.
Right,
In fact, even apartments, E&F, that's in the GPOD. So the GPOD pretty much goes down the road, just to the left of E&F, comes down and goes across. So all of the buildings on the lower campus, those buildings in the middle campus, and E&F are all within the GPOD area. So it's a substantial.
This is not a new issue. I mean, I remember raising this in January. I mean, it's been here all along. Okay, so we have,
Marty, sorry, the planning board's right to, or the option for the planning board to not require the 40% open space. If it's a site plan review under a permitted use, no special permit required, is the planning board able to that requirement as part of the site plan review, or would that trigger a special permit?
Actually, under site plan review, we would not be able to impose that,
Well, it's already a requirement in the bylaw.
but it is a requirement of the bylaw. Let me check something. Some of the requirements of this bylaw just pertain to new construction. Yeah, so the special requirements for new development or expansion of existing buildings requiring a special permit. So for site plan review, we would not require either of those two things, actually. That's all new construction. That whole provision, 9.6, so maybe this is a tempest in a teapot. But nonetheless, it's still something that should be considered. I mean, if you have kids playing and people walking, it's a safety issue. So for safety purposes, it would be extremely useful to have.
You think town council can weigh in on that?
We could ask, absolutely. But that's the way it's worded right now, that we were focused, those provisions were focused for new construction. So if the dormitories were ever torn down, then all those provisions that we just talked about
Special permit.
would apply. So anyhow, I think that we want to add residential uses by right for Pilgrim Hall, the Gatehouse, and the Retreat House. And so with respect to commercial, we have business professional office, and that's for Pilgrim Hall, the Gatehouse, and the Retreat House only. And so then the question becomes, in my mind, whether we want any other commercial uses available in those three buildings. That's question one. And then I just note that in the middle campus and the upper campus, there is a row that says small-scale retail, cafe, restaurant, or similar use serving occupants, employees, or guests. So those are the kinds of amenities I was talking about that often exist in assisted living facilities, senior housing facilities even. I mean, you could even see that in a 55-plus housing development, because I don't know if you all are familiar with the condominiums. I think that might actually be a co-op. Great Hill in Topsfield, you familiar with that? They have a big building that's available to residents for their parties and whatnot, and they have a swimming pool.
But that's not commercial, right? That's not considered commercial.
No, that wouldn't be considered commercial, but maybe they,
That's why I'm kind of confused about, so like, an assisted living or whatever type of facility goes on up there.
That's
Yeah.
considered a business use.
It's a business, it's not commercial, though.
I think it's in our
The amenities
in our bylaws, I think
amenities you
it's.
provide as part of it, as part of that development isn't.
yeah, but it's still, they're still selling stuff.
It just
Potentially.
There's a little bit of ambiguity in the the language without having, of course you can't define whatever type of retail, small scale retail use might be, but there might be a little ambiguity in that one line.
Yeah. Mark, do you know if the current bylaws put assisted living for seniors in commercial? I think it does. And I think that we're trying to match up with the language in the bylaws if we can. And this has been changed so many times. But
There's long-term care facilities under residential.
no, that would be different. I think it's there's a separate assisted living for seniors. Might say for elderly.
I don't think what you're talking about as an example in Ipswich is commercial. That's in a residential zone.
You're talking about the residents at Riverbend?
That's right. That's the example you've been giving to people, and that's not commercial.
Right,
Well,
but it is a business
When the
use.
family
It's a
pays the
business,
bill for the residents, at the residence of Willow Bend, it's pretty commercial.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm telling you is that it resides in a residential zone.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't,
Just why
it's
it-
not part of a commercial zone.
Right, which is why this is compatible with,
Yeah.
this idea is compatible with the reuse of these buildings.
I totally agree, but I don't know if it's commercial.
Well, here's what our bylaw says. This is the definition of nursing home or assisted living for seniors or the infirm, a commercial use for the residential care of those who are infirm or elderly.
Yeah, that's the reason it was in there, but it's also considered a business, I believe, but.
I mean, it's safer to put it in commercial than residential, in a sense.
Yeah. No, I
And,
agree.
actually, I wonder what the actual nomenclature is for these types of facilities where they have independent living, assisted living, and a nursing home. They have different levels.
Well, the building code has them, they would be called institutional in a building code. Then they had the different degrees of infirmity, so they have ratings right down to prison, which is incarceration of the people in there. But, so there's a mobility issue with senior living or assisted living. So they have different levels, but I believe they're all, that's the building code, and that calls it institutional, but, so there is no consistency across the
There's
board.
no consistency. And then there is a dichotomy between a nursing home and then those residential care facilities because of that dreadful fire in New Bedford.
Yeah.
And there was a different code applicable to that facility. And in part, that resulted in the deaths there.
And then memory care is a whole different thing where the doors are
Yeah.
locked, so.
Those are locked.
Which is on the verge of incarceration.
Yeah.
Right. Don't laugh.
I think
Could
I would
be you.
eliminate the small-scale retail cafe restaurant. Because if it's an amenity as part of, let's say for Middle Campus, it's senior housing development, and the senior housing development happens to have a little kiosk that people could buy Snickers bars from. That's part of that.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to separately,
As
you're
an-
allowing now a Dunkin' Donuts.
As an accessory use, then, put it in there as a,
I don't know even if you have to call it that. Would you?
well, our accessory uses said that if you, the note on the bottom, in general, not assumed to be freestanding facilities, but secondary areas within a primary residential commercial establishment providing services as noted. So we could put it there. So if you wanted a Starbucks and a senior service, you could put one in there, I guess, right?
The issue is if your worst fear is chains, like a Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, those can be like a little vest pocket service, like in, Shaw's.
Yeah.
It's still an accessory use.
The
So you
square
can't
footage is more
you can't
valuable.
outlaw chains.
Yeah.
You can control how big they are and where they are, but you can't outlaw them.
And how you use your square feet, because they're really precious, it's not going to be for that kind of use. you know.
Maybe not allowed instead of assumed?
What's not allowed?
In your notes, accessory use in general are not assumed to be freestanding facilities, but secondary areas within the primary residential. So
We
I guess
might
you're
want
saying
to
you're
say
specifying it.
accessory uses must not be freestanding.
Right.
But
and
part
then-
of, yeah.
And that's mirrored under commercial with small-scale retail
Yeah.
as part, as serving occupants, employees, or guests. So it's subsidiary, it's accessory use.
Yeah.
What we might
Again,
want,
it doesn't prevent that from being a Dunkin'
No, I
Donuts.
understand.
So,
Yeah, there was a structured parking component of accessory uses that was meant to serve an adjacent building. That's when we were looking at professional business office buildings on the upper campus primarily. But that's gone now, so that's not an accessory use. So that would have been a freestanding building. It could have been a freestanding.
That's right.
and what What's the problem with accessory, I mean, with the structured parking at this point? Why?
Why is it taken out?
Yeah,
There's nothing to warrant it right now.
yeah, okay.
I guess so.
Just trying to get clear on it.
Can we return to retail, cafe, restaurant, or similar use serving occupants, employees, or guests? I will vote for taking out small scale, and if the board agrees, moving it to accessory uses if warranted, same, keeping the special permit. But I would say retail, cafe, restaurant, or similar use serving occupants, employees, or guests of, and then put less than 250 square feet, pick a number. You know, that caps the size and prevents a Starbucks. Well, some Starbucks are tiny.
The only problem is what happens to Pilgrim Hall then and the retreat if that.
Well, you know, I think what's going to have to happen is we need separate uses for Pilgrim Hall, the retreat house, and the gatehouse. I mean, they almost have to be listed separately.
So Marnie, you're talking about dropping that line, that row.
Moving that row down to
Down to accessory uses.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
Is it weird to have a special zone or use regulation for individual buildings?
For what?
Or individual buildings rather than a zone? Is that
Yeah.
is that supportable? Is that legal? Are we tiptoeing into a odd area here?
It's a matter of how do you limit it, you know, to
Thing to talk to council about.
Yes.
about particular,
So anyway,
particular
it's a
buildings
question.
as opposed to all buildings. Yeah.
I mean, talk about spot zoning, it's like building zoning.
Yeah. That's right.
It doesn't feel right,
It doesn't really feel wrong to me, though.
but I think it's a good question for town council.
Because the difference is, one is an existing building. All new construction is residential, but existing buildings,
Yeah, but what you're talking about really narrowing in on uses here per building.
It's a good point, because it's the same, you know, to the comment earlier about the retreat house to have a permitted use in the heritage landscape under residential. Now you're talking about the heritage landscape allowing a residential P, but restricting it to the building that's there, I guess. Right? Is that how you, I was trying to figure out how we would do that in the chart. or in
Well,
the
we were
table.
wondering at one time whether that should be put on a lot, the retreat house, and actually assigned to the middle campus.
You know, and all of these, maybe we need to craft like an array of questions for town council so we don't trip into these things.
Yeah, we got a pretty short time, but one of the
Yes.
reasons we didn't do it was just the time element.
Yeah.
okay, so,
And who would define a lot, and,
well, the questions are, one, can you craft different uses?
Per building,
Building.
by building, without lotting. And it might be that we want to show town council some examples of specifically what we're looking at doing. So it's not hypothetical, it's specific to this context.
Right, so just let me, so for the retreat house, the gatehouse, and Pilgrim Hall, we're good with residential uses, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're good with business, professional office, right?
Mm-hmm. And
What
then the
else?
question is, with Pilgrim, do you want to allow accessory, commercial, retail, cafe, something like that,
Yeah,
with Pilgrim?
I would advocate for a cafe.
I mean, I think it's a good idea, it's just whether it's legally, is there a legal tripping point in there anywhere, that's all.
Right, right.
I don't think there's
There's
anybody in the
enough-
room here that thinks it's a bad idea.
There's another category of,
Got to check on the note.
Should we add business
Language in
professional office
Dwellings
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
/ residential then for?
Yeah.
Because I know they wanted
Yeah.
that request.
Yeah.
Pilgrim Hall Gatehouse and Retreat House only could accommodate business, professional office, or residential. It's under commercial, but whether that would take care of that request.
There's another use, I think it's personal service.
No.
So maybe, so we don't have to recycle through this again, maybe we could get consensus on what the desired outcome is and then run it by town council.
Right, that's what I'm trying to get our uses. Yeah, it says personal service establishment, a facility providing personal services such as hair salon, barber shop, tanning beds, dry cleaning, print shop, photography studio, personal fitness center, and the like, which I could see some of those uses in Pilgrim Hall. So, you know, cafe, I don't think there's, well, retail would be, I guess you could say grocery, small grocery, personal service. We can just, what do you think of these?
How about like a convenience store? Is that like a small grocery?
Yeah. Well, you hate to use the word convenience, so, but I
You
would
could say
think like a-
inconvenience store.
What?
Nothing.
I was thinking like Meadowbrook
When you
Farm.
stand behind somebody who's buying lottery tickets, it's an inconvenience store.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, you might limit it to a size, and it also has to be, it's not a freestanding structure, it's always within another structure.
Well, we do say, or similar use, you know, in other words, there'll be presumably a pre-application meeting, kind of sort out what, you know, if there is a particular, I'm wondering whether, because if we start listing all of them,
It gets crazy.
it's crazy. And some you may not want there, especially one that drives traffic. I would think that would be a,
But we would need something in addition to business, professional office, residential, right? For
Yeah.
Pilgrim Hall especially.
Right.
But if you, so what if you allowed a permitted, you know, by right use, site plan, whatever it is, if it's residential, as soon as you add an accessory, then it's special permit. So do the repurposing and use it for whatever it is, but then.
all
you know, if you
accessories are,
expand the-
they're all,
It's all special permit anyway.
Yeah. What?
Well, then that's fine.
Yeah.
We're covered. If you want to put it, you know, that's a.
Yeah.
But you need to be clear that it's not freestanding, that it's subsidiary to the, it's within the structure.
That's right.
And it's subsidiary to that use.
That's right.
It's
So in
accessory
other
to the-
words, if they wanted any type of commercial, more like retail, cafe, restaurant in Pilgrim Hall, you'd have to either put some dorm rooms in there, residential, and have the accessory uses, or put some offices in there
Right.
and have accessory
And then the
uses.
question is, you know, not only is it accessory, but do you want to limit its size?
Yes. At small scale is too ambiguous.
Yes, so it needs to be a square footage.
But it is limited.
But it's
in
it
the
is limited
sense
because
that
of the nature of the
builds, the
building.
expansion of the building is too.
It
You know what
is,
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, but to your, I mean, you're
5% for Pilgrim Hall. Yeah.
you're using an example of like somebody wants the excuse of having a large retail and they put 2 token dorms in or 2 token art studios or something like that.
Right.
You know, then you're going the wrong direction. I think having a square footage limit might make sense.
500 square feet?
That's a 2-car garage. Is that good enough?
So you're allowing a.
You can say 2-car garage, that's so visual.
Take
That's
Pilgrim
what
Hall,
it
for
is.
instance, 35% allowed expansion, which is 5,000.
Well, that's by special permit, so that doesn't mean it has to happen.
Yeah, that's right, but.
Because parking is an issue with Pilgrim Hall.
Right.
So, you know, if you put 500 square feet, I mean, think of parking. I mean, it gets too big, there's no parking without,
But that's a basic visual is a 2-car garage, 500 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
And that would limit, like, it can't be much of a food service business because, half of a food service business is back of the house. So that means you'd have 250 square feet to serve the people.
So what do you suggest?
I don't think I mean, what limits it is a building size, frankly.
Yeah.
And, even adding a 35.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I don't see a problem with that, again, with if they get one occupant in there, that's fine. If they get four, that's
Are there
fine too.
minimums for business sizes? Are there,
No.
no?
No, that really varies, but,
Yeah.
but all the
About the
uses we've been
Starbucks and
talking about,
Shaw's. It's not much bigger than this table.
Yeah.
a takeout coffee shop is pretty small.
Yep.
Kind of place.
But a cafe,
Or a
with
sit-down
outdoor
place, yeah.
sitting,
Yeah.
outdoor seating?
This area here is 336 square feet.
Did you count tiles?
Yeah. So 500 is pretty big.
That's pretty big for
Yeah.
a small coffee shop.
Yeah.
Well, if you want a little restaurant, you don't want to be so
And
small.
I'm not
that-
saying it has to be limited in square footage, but it's just,
Well, I
just
think
trying to
that-
think of all the end arounds that a developer
Right,
might.
but I think
we gotta
limiting
move
the
on
square
to-
footage is better.
What would you say? What did you say, Emil?
I think we got to move on
Yeah.
to,
Yes,
But small scale is, what does that mean?
I agree. It's a question.
Plus, as soon as you add a restaurant, you're dropping off and taking away food every day. You got a grease trap. There's all this
Deliveries.
elements of a
Yeah, so you're right. Yeah.
But
all
it-
that stuff.
no, it could be just reconstituting food there, warming it up,
Could be, but
ending up, but yeah.
That's why if you limit the square footage, you limit that process.
yeah.
Because of a full back of the house is not, it's
Can't
not
put a
closet
kitchen.
size. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't put a hot line in a tiny space.
You don't want, yeah.
I don't know what those bays are in terms of size in Pilgrim, between the columns, but, they seem like reasonable small scale sizes. I've been in there only once.
So where do we want to land on this?
Why don't we mull it over and then
Okay.
redraft it?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe let's just leave it small scale and let.
Yeah.
Let
Because
the
it goes
special
through a
permit
special permit.
process
Go
shake
through
it
a
out.
special permit and at some point, 1,000 square feet's not small.
Right.
Yeah.
And there would be an outcry probably
Yeah.
from,
Right.
We
Okay.
can't pinpoint it too
Yep.
carefully here. And without having a specific thing in mind, we
Right.
want to keep it sort of open.
okay.
Okay, so we have a general direction here. Let me just suggest that we get in touch with Robin Stein and put together as soon as possible a revised table 2,
Yeah.
depending on what she has to say. So the fundamental changes are rebuilding the apartments, well, multifamily, new construction, that's special permit. So that's big. And the other is to add the residential uses by right for Pilgrim Hall, the Gatehouse, and the Retreat House. So those are the two big things. And then the legal question is whether you can, actually, if you just leave accessory, if you just have accessory uses for those 3 buildings,
It may not be an
It's-
issue.
we don't have the problem.
Right. It was just, if you zone a building for a particular use, that's just odd.
Right, so that actually, you said that solves the problem. We will move the small scale, whatever,
To accessory.
accessory, and that
Okay.
means they can go into those 3 buildings, and so maybe we don't have to contact town council.
And then add
Mark, do you have an
residential.
opinion
Add
about that?
residential, yeah.
Business professional.
What was
Right.
could you repeat the solution, Marty?
Instead of trying to, well, actually, no, that's wrong. I'm wrong, because we are saying business professional office for those 3 buildings. That is zoning.
Yeah, so we still have the
buildings.
question.
We still
Okay,
have the question.
stands.
We still have the question.
we could put on table 1 where it has expansion of existing apartment buildings. We could say expansion or rebuilding existing apartment buildings permitted by special permit.
Yeah, if you want to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, man.
Right. Let's skip building types. You know, if anybody has a problem with building types, email me.
Yeah, because we're
gotta
making
get
slight
going.
changes here, so we can make these on our own, make the changes to coordinate that, yeah. Table 4,
Table 4.
4 and 5,
Should we do 5 first?
yeah.
Let's do 5 first.
I have a quick question on the building types real quick, and I'm not sure it's applicable, maybe it was talked about earlier on. Is there any, was there any consideration or discussion around architectural compatibility? Not necessarily form-based code, but something like that, that on the commercial side can keep things?
Not on the commercial side. I mean, it would be fabulous if we could do design guidelines for any residential development, but this planning board doesn't have the, I hate to use this word, Jim and Marjorie hate this word, bandwidth to do design guidelines at this point in time. I mean, it would be wonderful if we could outlaw.
We could just adopt one of the ones we already have.
What's that?
We could just adopt one of the ones we already have.
I don't think they would cover these.
Okay.
Yeah,
Always do it afterwards.
yeah,
Yeah, it's something we talked about
yeah.
for the town center, and it would be nice to have them applicable here, because one thing I know I'm really opposed to is that snout, what is it?
Snout zoning where the garage
Snout house
leads,
where
the
the
garage is
the-
furthest forward.
Is,
That could be in the code, the garage has to be behind the front facade.
it can be,
Yeah, that should be in a code, yeah,
add that,
yep. So
wherever that goes.
wherever that goes,
So what is you can give me the language.
I'll give it to you.
But just for anybody's edification, it's where the garage is the most prominent feature.
It's the most forward mass in the house.
Yeah, and it's
And it's facing the street.
It's often enormous and dwarfs the front door. Okay, so
Jeff, you were probably talking about pitched roofs versus flat roofs primarily, as the basic form.
Yes.
Any kind of distinction here. We're not getting into that, but
we have a pre-application conference and all that kind of stuff, and that's where.
that's where the discussion will get heavier.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Emil?
You want to start 5?
Yeah, let's do 5.
Okay,
Because if we have 5,
this was added.
4 flows from 5.
This was added as primarily as an overall, where do we want to land in all of this? Because the table 4 has got a lot of detail. I can explain each building footprint and area, how it arrived there. But this is the one that, to me, was a way to summarize. I had to do this in order to be clear on where we were going at some point when I started doing the charts. So this one, start with the lower campus, district developable area. Again, this is kind of rewriting here because the chart that I put together is not going to appear in the code. This proposed BHOD development options, that's not a code thing, that's a working document for us. So I just wanted to stipulate what the developable area is. Now these were revised to now include the data that Marwin gave us, that 50% or more pitch on the slope on the property within each one of these districts. So that data came from them. So in fact, we get 6.8 acres, 8 acres in LC1. And that comes out to have, given the buildings on there now, an FAR of 0.34. That's a given now. Gross building area is a given, an open space requirement. So we're saying, well, okay, this particular zone has those requirements. So are we saying now that we would want to continue that? Otherwise, we're writing a code that's non-conforming, to what's there already, which could be problematic to me. But But this is one now, would you build it the same way? I think the answer would be no, you wouldn't build it, given those lots. So, so this essentially is accepting that as what we're going to do going forward. And is that clear? We're accepting the lot that was defined for the LC 1 and 2. We're saying you can reuse the buildings. We have the square footage, we have the lot size, and those are the FARs, 0.34 and 0.54 for those two districts. Those are all given, and the gross square footage is determined already based on those existing buildings. The only thing that is not determined where it's going is the 40% open space. Now, I did a quick analysis on each one of those lots, especially LC1, which has the 4 apartment buildings. I analyzed all the square footages for the footprints, put them together, and then essentially did a block that is the defined land within, that is the 6.88 acres. Drew that box, put in the existing square footage as footprints, calculated then that how much now do we need for 40% open space of the 6.88 acres, put that down, and there was plenty of area left there to theoretically get the required. So I've accounted for the buildings, the open space. The only thing missing was a common space, but the common could be shared in the open space. So it appears it could work, but these were building footages. So the remaining part would be circulation and parking.
Actually, though, we just looked at the bylaw, and because this is not new construction, that 40% open space doesn't apply.
I'm saying it probably does there, but that was a quick calculation.
Yeah.
But it's not useful space. In other words, it would be residual space
Right,
somewhere. It's not consolidated in one area. What we have to come up with is the 500 times, in LC1 times the 100 units.
Yeah, but that's what I just said. Since it's not new construction, does it apply? Because
Well, the thing is, we have not gone through, again, if we do just go through the graphic, not trying to design the buildings, but just look at, well, what's being used on those properties for buildings, what's being used as open space.
Okay, go ahead. I'm not-
And what's left over is traffic, it's parking, and there was a significant amount that was equal to the 40%, but it's not all in one area. It's not, in other words, it's crossed by roads, it has parking spaces in it, it's kind of utility areas for trash. It is a good question. It has not been determined completely that, I'm saying you can get that 40% as open space in there, that non-paved, but didn't run through the calculation exactly on parking square footage.
How many
I can't,
units are
I
in
can't do
that
that much.
Lower campus one again?
What?
How many units are in that lower campus one again?
100 total.
So that's about
It's a spider.
40,000 square feet.
About an acre, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a 12 acre,
For that many parking spaces.
yeah.
Then you got roads and
Then you have roads and
I don't know if you get that's pretty.
Dumpsters and sidewalks.
dumpsters,
I
sidewalks.
don't know. That's
It's not,
you have to be creative to get there.
Yes.
yeah. The open space is there, but is it meaningful, I guess, because of that?
That's if every inch of it is able to be.
So that's the problem we have now, that do we want to write it in as, because I would say if you had to rebuild those and you would build these in, then the numbers could be evaluated down the line. You'd get the drawings of the new project that would have all the information you're looking for on it. I mean, I don't know how I couldn't get the area for all the paving on that LC1 now. I don't think that would be available, but theoretically it could fit, but it would not be meaningful open space.
But I think that's just a fact for A and B, because it's on an island. It's on an island of upland,
Yeah.
in a marsh. unless what you did, I mean, you could design a building around the open space. In other words, you let the tail wag the dog. You let the open space design the building, and you could create something interesting that way, but no developer is going to do that.
Yeah. Whereas I thought you could actually put an open space above the parking. It would be an elevated building.
Again, no developers
with
will
all
do that.
grass top on
Yep.
top of
It's
that
just
isn't going to
expensive,
happen.
Yeah.
Let's just
So
skip
it's
that for a minute.
A and B is a puzzle.
A and B is
That's a puzzle, yeah.
LC 1 and 2.
Not to mention the fact, the way that the parking is laid out for,
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's gonna walk in the winter that long to get to, the developer would reconfigure the parking to get it all closer to the building, but that doesn't help your open
You're talking
space
about E and F or A and B? E and F is a hike along the,
ENF.
yeah, is a hike along the
Then
septic
most
system.
northerly too. Yeah.
So,
A and B is crammed into the buildings.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's locked in with wetlands and,
Yep, it's basically an island.
yeah.
But you can't avoid that with the way the district is written.
Right.
Well, let's go to
I'm
the
saying
middle, let's try the middle campus, see if we make any progress. Again, the first column is a given. So I want to talk about the FAR. And we're going to get into this in more detail here because this was an FAR range of 0.05 to 0.012. And the two gross floor areas, 43,000 and 93,000, is the range for the middle campus. And that came about by looking at the worst scenario, the middle. The goal for each one of these is to wind up with 400,000 square feet, which is pretty much what it is now. Right now it's 397 plus thousand. So let's say 400,000 square feet on the site. So that has that total FAR of, I think it's 0.17 or 0.18, whatever it is, but the 0.18 on the existing. So I said, well, okay, I'll just give you the logic behind this. We looked at Ipswich. I was looking for a precedent. What is a way to calculate this? And Ipswich, as we talked about before, has three ways to do it. In every case, they came up with the most you could build on that because it doesn't have the extensive, significant architecture that was at the biolabs, for example. But the three calculations all came up to just slightly below 200,000 square feet, could be the maximum built on the entire site. Right now, we're double that at the 400,000. So the question then was that, given all the conversations we've had, given all what we've heard from the abutters and whatever, and the town still needing to get this approved, we said, well, let's start with keeping the 400,000 as a goal for each one of these conditions as a total. Then it becomes a matter of how you're going to distribute the square footage between the middle campus and then the upper campus. So this is where I went through the gymnastics, and what I found that the two scenarios were, if you were to have equal FARs on the middle campus and the upper campus, that would then have allow you then 93,000 feet in the middle campus as a maximum, but that would be a 0.12 FAR, and the 43,000 would be the minimum, because the 43,000 is a 0.05 FAR, and the only things happening in the middle campus is what's there now, the Pilgrim Hall, wastewater treatment, and I put the retreat house in there because that is the only way to put. We don't have anything else in the heritage. It would have been another column, but it come out to the same thing. So, so those are really the extremes, and then the rest of the development would be on the top of the hill. So one is, do we want to level it out with an FAR to split the difference between equally, same FAR, top of the hill and bottom of the hill, or go to the extreme, zero building more on the middle campus and everything on top, and where in between do we want to lie on this? So this was not an attempt to kind of give you every possible scenario, but these were kind of the extremes, and how does this sort of feel in that. And so the idea with this FAR, what I came up with was that actually the middle campus and the upper campus have to work together. So if you have a 0.05, you actually on the top of the campus are going to have a 0.16, 143,000 on top. And so they work against each other. When you raise the FAR on the middle, that goes in, then you got to lose something off the top. So it's really a sliding scale of how much square footage, how are you going to place it? Do you place it equally or concentrate everything in one area? And what is that right distribution?
I think the way you've outlined it is fantastic because it gives context and the algebra is correct. The middle campus on this sheet that you've given to it matches the square footages. If you're allowing the maximum of 10% expansion of the retreat house and 35% expansion of the Pilgrim
I've
Hall,
added
but you
those.
get to the 43,000 square feet, you get to the 0.05. My suggestion or preference would be not to have the ranges, but to only reflect the maximums and prioritize the development to the upper side of the campus. This is just my opinion, and have the middle campus floor area ratio of 0.05, which matches the maximum allowable expansion of the current buildings, allowing for the open space required to support.
Are you saying
other
keeping
elements.
the middle campus 0.05?
Keeping the middle campus 0.05
And giving
and
a
allowing
max on the
ma-
upper.
of 0.16. And that gets you the 400,000 square feet.
Can I offer a just a contrasting vantage point? Okay, so that'd be one way to do it, and it would keep everything up top. What's kind of helpful to remember is back to steep slopes. When you put the full concentration on the top of the hill, you start to run into the steep slopes. It starts to spill off the sides of the hill. So your parking, your roadways, all those sort of things start to sort of spill down the hill. And even though you think you've concentrated it as far away from everything as possible, you've actually made it a little harder to do and more space intensive because you're spilling onto the steep slopes. So if you let a little bit more come down to the middle campus, especially the flat areas, you actually can preserve the quality of the space a little better. So that's just a contrasting view. I'm not saying that's what the answer is. I'm just saying that's a contrasting view. Because I think your goal is to try to get it away from everything. The top of the hill is as far away from everything that you're concerned about as possible.
I'll give you we make reference to BioLab, but the flat elements of the campus are left open and available for use. The one hilly element it's not steep slopes, but it's the one area with an elevation change. The building has been built into that.
Into the hill, yeah.
And integrating it into the landscape.
Yeah.
And I think that's the opportunity you have on the upper campus to provide density, but not making it so I'm not.
If you look at the upper
I don't know if a developer would do that, but it would be my preference for that to happen.
Now I'll argue against my point of view. I'm going to do my own counterpoint here. What's nice is that Marnie added in the retaining wall piece of the bylaw. And so if you start to spill down the slope, you won't have fortresses of retaining walls because the bylaw discourages it. So it will be more sensitive. And yes, buildings are excellent retaining. They're better retaining than parking lots or roadways. They retain great.
I don't think we're going to build on slopes. What we have are two flat areas, the middle campus and the upper. And the problem with concentrating another reason on the upper is that they're maxed out in parking now. When they go through a parking count for their 167,000 square feet, with the exception of that 1.5 acre piece, which I guess the town owns where the reservoirs are, it's parking lot, that entire top. Not landscape, but it's
And that will spill toward the edges.
Yeah.
But the awesome opportunity you have in that landscape is to put the parking under the building. I don't know if
We've outlawed structured parking though, right?
But I don't know if that is the intent of the outlaw.
We have a height limitation of 35 feet, so you're not going to start putting parking under it if that's going to push your building.
If you're into the hill, you would. Absolutely.
Well, into the hill, but
Yeah.
that's only one part of it's mostly on the top. If it's just,
I guess if you're looking, I guess the feedback I'm giving is my preference would be to prioritize the development on top of the hill where
I
it
think-
already is. Where it already is, by the way.
I agree that there should
Where
be a
it's
higher FAR.
160,000 square foot of building up there already. And
Yeah.
we're saying now we're wanting 104, it's even less than what's up there.
Yeah. It's a different type of building.
It's a different type, but it's already less than what's already up there, and it's maintaining open what is already open.
Yeah.
I think that's my preference
What it also allows,
for the 400.
sort of, to your point, there it was indicated that Gordon Conwell might want to split that top into two pieces. Let's just say it's roughly equal. That means Carroll Hall is going to be on one piece, and that would then say that when they would sell it, the library, the academic building, the chapel would go away for residential use because that's not one of the purposes allowed. So what the idea was that somebody could actually work with the Kerr Hall. I don't know whether you can make money doing it, but say that could even be repurposed perhaps to an assisted living building. If you were to take, there are a couple of wings that project out toward the south, toward the retreat house. You knock those off, that's where the slope is. You could actually, you're now down from 75,000 square feet to 50,000 in that building. You could then put at least a 25,000 square foot addition that is more usable on that building. So now you have a 75,000 square foot senior serviced housing structure there. You have the other half of that campus on the top that's available for building. So you've hit the 75,000, so you've got another 90,000 square feet left. Because you're already taken up on the lower campus with, 200,000 plus square feet on the lower campus. So you could actually build out another 90,000 if you wanted to put it up on top. Now that's a lot for half of that size up there. That would be the equivalent of all those buildings that are already now the library, roughly that equivalent, but spread out onto smaller buildings distributed around. The thought was to get a little bit more on the lower campus of that excessive building area. That's why it's not the 167,000 on the top of the hill. It's down to 143. So the last 20, 30,000, whatever it is, went to the middle campus as to even out the scenario there. Anyway, that was the idea, that was the scenario where that was the plan one, where by right would be the gatehouse. That's part of the upper campus. And then, that
The
was.
upper and the lower campus, 1 and 2 is fine. I think the middle campus and the upper campus is the only thing whether or not to keep the range the way it is or to give the maximums like I described or.
See, in my view, having the range, that flexibility, is actually a good thing because we don't know who's going to be first to the party. We just have no idea. And that places the risk on the seminary when it goes to sell.
Yeah, they would have to
Because
make a decision.
They
on
would
the
have to make a
calculation.
decision whether they wanted to use up all their FAR on the top of the hill,
Yeah.
or whether they would say to a developer, well, you can do X,
Yeah.
because we want to reserve some of that square footage for some future development on the middle campus. And that's their call. It depends on their financial circumstances and any number of factors that we can't even think about now. We just don't know what the future holds. So put it this way, whatever we do, probably in 4 or 5 years, someone will second guess us because that's just the nature of
Would it
how
be-
these things work. So I understand exactly what you're saying, but having the range permits the result you want, but doesn't preclude potentially really good projects. And it also permits most of the development on the top of the campus and maybe some in the middle campus. So, it's two sides.
Would it be valuable to hear from the seminary on this question?
No, not at this point.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know.
I mean, if we only
It's a
have,
question.
if
It's a
we have
question.
another meeting.
Yeah.
We have another
I
meeting.
think we've kind of
Gotta make a
honed in
decision.
on
Yeah.
But we should make a
where we want.
decision. We should make a decision tonight, and then the seminary and the public hearing can ask for reconsideration. That's how I look at it. We should pick a lane, and then whatever lane we pick, I'm sure you'll have no trouble telling us we're wrong. But that's, I think that we need to sort of finalize this so that after our next public hearing, we are just responding to public comment. So I think we should now try and decide as much as possible, as soon as possible. So, you know.
Should we go around the room and then sort of
Yeah,
take a
let's go
straw
around
poll
the room.
vote?
And I fully appreciate what Pat says. So if he prevails, I'm not going to tear my hair out. So let's go around the room. What do you think, Darcy?
I like the flexibility that you were talking about. And I think there's something to be said about using the middle campus so that we don't overbuild on the top. I'm trying to think what else. Well, that's how I feel. I think that makes perfect sense.
Do you want me to go next, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I would promote flexibility, but favoring density, more density on the top of the hill. So create the flexibility, but weight the top of the upper campus more greatly. So it's not that you can get 50-50, but it doesn't preclude doing things on the lower campus, but it keeps the middle campus, but it keeps the middle campus less dense. Do you want to know a number?
So right now, the range for the middle campus is 0.05 to 0.12.
Right, so you'd raise the 0.05.
And
Well, it's already weighted to the upper campus as is right now, 0, 5, 12, or 10 to 16.
Right, but the 0.05 is pretty low.
Yes, it is.
0.05 takes the 10% in.
Yes.
Into account.
It's basically
Assuming that
existing.
They're going to do that. But you have to do the dormitories, so that 10%, which is a lot, is added to the middle campus.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would raise, it's just my opinion, but again, I agree with Marnie. I wouldn't get lost on this. You know,
well, give us the exact numbers. So right now, it's 0.05 to 0.12. So you give us the numbers for the middle campus, and then you adjust the upper campus because that's
say like 0.07.
0.06.
Let me just,
0.8.
can I just ask, can we just look at this chart first? Because you got to understand what can be built in a middle campus. I mean, can you bring this proposed up, the proposed development options? Sorry, Marnie, but this kind of gives a perspective, how much in the middle campus. This kind of answers that question. Do you have this?
Yeah, so you'd want a meaningful cluster of buildings.
It's got to be meaningful in size,
like a
so it
mini
actually is
Boulders or something
viable.
like that.
It's got to be viable.
Yeah.
So this is what I want to point out in plan, no, not that one, but it's the proposed development options.
It's the colored one, right?
Yeah, great. Okay, the top row is existing conditions. We're not going to talk about that, but that's available to look at. Plan 1, I want to point out, very quickly, the reuse of the buildings includes the 10% for the elevators and so forth for both campuses, LC 1 and 2. Now, the middle, if you look at Plan 1, that combination of 43,000 square feet is actually, takes into account the retreat house, Pilgrim Hall. So those are built into that number because they're existing buildings, plus the 10% and the 35%. So that leaves, and then what I did, the only other option we can have down there is townhouses and senior housing. It's too small an area to get a 75,000 square foot because that's going to drive that number up and really lower the top. So the senior service has to go on the top because that's going to be the largest building at 75,000. But what you could get in there is actually the low density scenario we did in the illustrative plans, which is the Boulders model. Boulders has 24 units in there of this size, 2,600 square feet, roughly 2,500. So we could actually, we've demonstrated you can get 20 of those boulder type in there with the same spatial relationship, and that'll give you 50,000 square feet. That would sit nicely in that flat part of the campus, I think, if you can visualize the image of the boulders. And then you look at the top. So you're going to reduce the top essentially by 50,000 square feet. So you have, if you go up to the upper campus, the last three columns on the right, other than the totals, you have the gatehouse, 22, 26. That would be business occupancy. But then you have townhouses, senior housing. So you have 90,000 feet to play with there to ultimately bring you to 400,000 on the right under total. Because again, that's the end game, 400,000 square feet. So you have 90,000 square feet to work with up there. That gives you a 0.10 build out. So what's swaying the scale a little bit is the reuse of the existing buildings. Now, Gordon Conwell can decide not to put on the 35% addition to Pilgrim and convert it to townhouses if they wish. So they could raise that one instead of expanding Pilgrim. So that's another way to gain a little bit more for them and that part of the campus. So what you'd have then is a 0.10 FAR on the top of the hill. So that, I'm just trying to look for the acreage. If you look at the top of the hill is actually 891,000 square feet. If you look at the number under the, where it says upper, that's actually the square footage of the district. The middle is smaller. It's 822,000 roughly square feet. So the upper is slightly larger, middle is slightly smaller in the final size of it. But what kind of sways it is the Pilgrim Hall and the retreat house. That's something that doesn't happen up on the top. But so anyway, that what would be required there is you'd have to take down all of the buildings on the top of the hill if you're going to develop that. But this is where I'm saying you could actually go then down to Plan 2, which if you want to go scroll down a little bit, Mark, go up, I'm sorry. Well, before I finish with Plan 1, that blue line right under that row, those rows there, gives the net change. So if you look at LC1, there's a net change of a positive 200 square feet. LC2, there's a plus 10,000 square feet, a plus 6,800 under the build-outs for Pilgrim Hall and Retreat, and 50,000 for the housing. Then you're going to get 90,000 on top of the hill, and you're actually losing 164 out of the total 166, 164,000. You take that off. So it's a net of 1,600 square feet, 1,672. So it's roughly the same across the board. It's redistributing where the square footage is located. Now, just look at Plan 2. The three left-hand columns are identical to what's right above it, but now there's nothing else built on the lower campus. That's 0. So that gives a 0.05 as the FAR. Everything's on top now. So we're going to put in everything else. So the gatehouse, 22, 26, and then the last two columns on the right, 65,000 for, and what is that, townhouses up there, and then 75 for senior residential care. And this is where that 75 they could actually repurpose Care Hall there or build a new one. But 75,000 square feet senior serviced housing would be up there. So you have that combination of 2,000 plus 65 plus 75,000 to give you a 0.18, because again, the goal is 400,000, and that's a 0.16. So the upper campus has gone from 0.10 to 0.16, where pretty much everything now except the givens are down on the lower and middle campus. The givens are really kind of substantial there in terms of square footage. So they kind of sway things. But my particular take is that if you're coming up with another use, instead of being 0 on like Plan 2, 0 in the middle campus, you have to do a big enough project to make it viable. Otherwise, I mean, you could put a couple of houses down there, but That's not a lot of square footage, and that's just, and who's going to take on that as a developer project? But if you're working with, 10 acres there, you could do a Boulders kind of complex there. I think that's on 7.5 acres in Wenham and has good open space around the units, so I think it would fit. That's just an example, or you can maybe get a few more. So it has to be big enough to be worthwhile as a developer project to be purchased by a developer, and yet not so big that it's going to take something more out of the top. So the benefit of Plan 2 is that you could actually reuse that building if you wanted to, Care Hall, or build another one. You have those two options on the top of the hill, and you still have 65,000 left to build for residential. So that was the argument there. The problem now is you get parking on the top, substantial. So if you put some of, if you got an offer for a senior service housing, let's just say they found a buyer for that, and they decided, yes, we want to go forward with that first. And then they decide, well, now we have to balance between the 65,000 for the other parcel on the top and 0 on the bottom. Can we can you break it in half, say, put 30,000 down on the bottom, 30,000 on the top, in addition to the 75? That would be the way to break it. But it has to be a meaningful change, in the FAR. So what I would probably do is, you're going to need, because you can build 2 Boulder-like projects at, at 50, close to 50,000, and still be in the 400 range. Or I think townhouses are better on the top of the hill, but because I think they're more suited for that environment. The Boulders, more spread out, more rural looking, would be better on the bottom. But I think it's a question of which is going to be more desirable, the 65,000 additional on the top of the hill or the 50,000 on the lower part of the hill. Those are sort of not far apart in terms of numbers. You can split the difference, but it isn't going to change the FAR very much. So that's kind of the decision. And what Marnie was saying is really coming down to, do you want to assign a particular FAR to the middle of somewhere like, say, 0.13 or something like that, and then 0.09 on the top, or something in between. But the idea is you always have to keep your eye on the 400,000. So if you agree to sell a parcel on that, you have to subtract that from what's left and figure out how's that. I'm not sure Gordon Conwell was going to run through that kind of, maybe they would, analysis on it, but to come up with the right amount. Otherwise, they may find if they put everything on top, they have nothing else to build that they can build in the middle campus. So we're trying to come up with something that works for them, but also is right for the town in terms of how much is too much, which has been our problem all along. How do we do this in a way that you can quantify it and defend it, I guess, from some standpoint. What I've heard is people would prefer, certainly the butters would, less on the lower campus, and there's a reason for that. But in terms of traffic count, it's because it's mostly residential, it's going to be the same, so traffic probably won't come into play off campus. So it's really, I guess, which would be the best option, maybe for Gordon Conwell, and which would be the best for the town. So you have some development. I think my sense is you can build more in the middle campus, and I would opt for that as opposed to and then do less on top. There's a little more flexibility on top to do a different type of residential kind of multi-living kind of townhouses that could be pretty neat on top of the hill. And you could consume the entire top of that with residential, but you're still limited to the 65 plus 75,000. I don't know if that makes any sense, 144,000, something like that. So,
So who's next? Beth online or?
She's asleep.
I'm here. Stop it. I think I vote for the most flexibility because we don't know if the seminary is planning on staying long-term. If we try to push more of the development up the hill, I just think it gives the seminary more options for development. If we leave it and give them that flexibility, because if they end up wanting to stay where they are, that's my sense. Give them the most flexibility.
Okay.
You want me to go next? I tend to lean towards advocating for what's there now, although the range, and let them sort of, for lack of better terms, choose their own poison where they want to put the development heavy. Even with that being said, though, the middle campus at the greatest density is 0.12. So it's still less density than the middle campus, right, than is upper campus. I wouldn't want to see the upper campus, as Jonathan explained, spilling over. So, but at the same time, it's the same amount of square footage, so that you're allowing them to decide where they want to put it, right? If I understand it correctly.
Yeah, the upper campus is larger, so it's going to have, so there'll be more square footage for the same FAR number, yeah.
Matt, did you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think I'm for flexibility to the extent we can weight it slightly towards the top. That would be my preference, but flexibility would be the main thing.
So I think most of us are saying it's flexibility, but do we want to change those ratios a little bit? Like Jonathan was saying, the point, I think.
And I don't know the right number.
Right,
the question
right.
is, what's the right number?
Right.
But instead of having it like, you can put it equal, can we favor the top but still maintain something meaningful at the bottom? To Emil's point, it can't be, a fragment of a development that nobody's interested in and has no benefit to anybody.
Yeah.
And has no energy to it.
And you're taking
You
away
don't do
from the
cluster
top.
housing with 3 houses.
Right.
You do it with 8.
And you're essentially taking it off what you could build on top.
Right. So what the question is, I don't know the number, but the point is you'd figure out the lowest meaningful number that would give you, like, say, 8 units or something like that, 10 units
If you use
down below.
If you use the math that Emil has in table 4.
Yeah.
And you say 93,000 square feet of development is allowed in the middle campus, that gives you 12. If you take a look at townhomes, that's 12.4.
43 is taken, 43,000. That leaves you 50 less for the 93,000.
I'm just saying you eliminate the buildings that are there. You have 93,000 square feet available by special permit.
So this is the allowable build out in that whole district.
That's right. So you could get 12
building.
units at 7,500 square feet per unit of building footprint. And at 3 to 6 dwelling units per unit, you're allowing 37 to 74 dwelling units in the middle campus. If you were to remove Pilgrim Hall and
Move it? If you were to move it?
you remove it. If you remove the buildings that are there and a developer
yeah.
comes in, I want to smash this place down.
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
to build out the middle campus to the greatest extent possible, given the what's available on the.
Pilgrim Hall takes up about half that number. The other half is the retreat building. They're roughly the same, 14,000 and 15,000 plus.
But you don't have to keep those buildings.
Sorry?
You don't have to keep them.
That's true.
So you could remove them and build 12 and a half townhomes at 7.
But you're trying to promote the reuse of those buildings. So you don't want to set up the numbers so that it promotes removing the buildings.
But this, I think my argument is that by putting the FAR up where it is, you may be. And then
you might.
What's going to end up happening, I guess what's going to end up happening is possibly what could end up happening is the next logical thing to sell is the middle campus. It's the easiest to develop. It's the cheapest. You could jam however many townhomes you might want in there. Seminary stays at the top of the hill. They make the money that they need. They've closed their doors. There's limited development available on top of the hill and all these buildings that no one can use. And so they're going to sit there and do nothing.
They could sell the other half up there because they're going to divide it roughly in half right
can't.
through the reservoir
They
and
can
build
only use a
residential.
portion of it.
Build residential.
You can only use a portion of it, though.
Half of it. So, but they would use that all residential. And that's the, the scenario. They could build 65,000 square feet of townhouses or, that's 26 units of, I guess, 2,500 square feet each or something like that.
You could build the same on the top. You would be able, so what you're doing, you could eliminate all the buildings on top of the hill. But I don't know if the math works that way for a developer to eliminate 166,000 square feet of building to create 12
I'm saying
townhomes.
they divide it in half, keep Care Hall because they have to operate out of it. But they could have the northern part, while they're still occupying for the next 20 years, demolish the buildings and sell that as a residential development. So now they have their existing facility, Care Hall, and they have residential on the top because they divided it in half. They could do that, which makes sense. Then that would kind of set the scenario then. Then they could choose to either take down Kerr Hall or a new developer, split what's remaining there between the 75,000 at Kerr Hall and the middle campus. They could then divide that up evenly once the parcel. That's an option they have. I think it makes sense, frankly, to do that. I don't know how much the library is in. They can't replicate it. I don't know how much they use those buildings at this stage. I mean, the academic center, the chapel. I don't know how that plays into their operation right now, whether they really, those are vital that they wouldn't want to
de-risk the overdevelopment of the middle campus, right?
This is next. It's the next parcel that's going to get sold. It's the next area that's going to get sold for development. So I think we should be very careful of what we apply for.
But I'm saying roughly, the first thing, if it's a middle campus, they have 50,000 square feet available. If it's the upper campus, they have 65,000. Because that leaves the only building left, the 75,000, which is Kerr Hall. So they have those two options to work with as a first sale. So it could be done on the middle campus at 50,000 and 60.
Assuming they keep the buildings that are there.
Big one?
Assuming that they keep the buildings that are there.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Which is an assumption.
Yeah. Yeah, they're expensive to rehab, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and
the developer's not going to use them.
not going to want to, but,
No.
they do have value.
We're not incentivizing, I think, what we want in the end by allowing an FAR that's up as high as it is for the middle campus is my concern. And maybe something we should.
So, yeah, I think.
But even if you enlarge LC1 and LC2 to make the space available, even if you were to encroach on the middle campus with both of those to allow for more space to use those buildings, then you're going to lower the middle campus square footage. So that FAR is going to go up, when you shrink it.
But it's not being shrunk.
Because you want 50,000.
But it's not being shrunk.
That's what?
I think the scenario you're describing is an imaginary.
They still have those options. They can take Pilgrim down, We can't control that really. It's not a protected building. We're encouraging it. We certainly want to. Maybe I'm not arguing strongly for these buildings, but because I do think they have a hell of a lot of value, frankly.
Are you advocating for a range, just lowering the range? Is that what you'd like?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm open to. I guess I'm also curious. I guess the concern I have is that the middle campus is sold immediately after the lower campus, and it gets developed with a bunch of townhomes.
For me, because
eliminate any open space altogether and limit the potential of something more interesting at the top of the hill. The middle campus is boring to me as a development.
Yeah, I think it could be more development in there. You think it's not as interesting? I think
it's the cheapest, and that's the one you stamp out for good value, and I think we're benefiting a developer in this case, but maybe not so much the town, even in the economic sense of what you get for value.
Well, the town's the same. At the same square footage is going to happen somewhere. The benefit to the town is maybe the history. I mean, we decided the heritage landscape, I think, for Treat House has to stay. I don't think that's an option because it's in the heritage landscape, but it technically is not part of the middle campus.
Yep.
So that number is sort of swaying that a little bit. But if talking about flexibility, I like the idea of having roughly equal to keep Kerr Hall on the top, divide that into two. Now you have two areas, middle and upper campus B on the top, that could be roughly developed the same amount, and we could balance that. So that would then give Gordon Conwell the option to sell let's just say the top is 18 acres, 19 acres. So it's 9 acres and 9 acres on top. One 9-acre would include Kerr Hall at 75,000 square feet. They could stay there. They could continue to use a retreat building because they're using that for offices now. So that could stay intact as an operational piece for them for the next 20, 30 years, however long they want to stay.
Yeah, but I think I don't want to speak for Pat, but I think Pat's concern is we're assuming they're keeping the buildings, right? So they could knock the buildings down and overdevelop that middle campus, which you're kind of swaying me in that thought process now. So I'm wondering, what would be for the middle campus, what would be the right number? I don't know if it's a range or maybe it's just a lower range.
If you set it at .05, you are absolutely solidifying the fact that they will keep the buildings and develop them to the maximum extent they could.
And so what would you do? Leave the upper campus at 6.16?
0.16.
Yeah.
Well, again, they only have half of it, so it's only about 20, maybe 30,000 if you're just talking about Pilgrim Hall. Unless you're talking about.
I'm just talking about I'm not talking about any building specifically, but I'm just saying the limits of the FAR.
Yeah.
If you set it at .05, you're pretty much saying that the development is restricted to the expansion of the existing buildings. And
I know, I'm not
sure that's.
Did we make
what
Pilgrim
want,
by right to keep that building?
Yeah.
So that's by right already. But they can still knock it down. They just can't reuse it.
A developer would.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't doubt that, but, you might be a creative developer who does something because it's a
So we have a
feature.
conundrum here. We have numbers here.
Yeah.
In this table 5. And if we try and adjust them, how are we going to adjust them? And who's going to do the math?
I think we can first agree that the logic, the overall, the total site development, whatever we do in the nuance between the upper and middle campus, I think we keep the totalized
The max,
development.
0.1.
That's great. That's a
Yeah.
good story for the
Yeah.
town and
Right.
gives flexibility into development. Just a matter of middle and upper campus, how you divide that. And I'm not saying this has to, I'm open. I am sensitive that.
You say keep it .1?
No,
Point
0.18, what it is.
He's saying keep
.16.
.05.
No,
No,
0.1.
total.
One option would be, of course. the
Everybody
extreme-
agrees .18. Everybody, there's no
Well,
debate about
that's
that.
the average across the
Yeah,
whole.
The extreme-
nobody's debating that.
On one side, the extreme would be keep the middle campus at .05
Right.
and keep the max on the upper campus .16.
Right.
That's like extreme Pat.
Yeah.
And then there's the middle of the road, AML, the 50/50, which is, I don't know, which is kind of what we got?
It's what?
It's just kind of what we got in the trade-off between what's allowed
I
development.
decided to balance it
Yeah.
roughly equally,
Yeah.
between,
And then there's the in-between, so there's the balance, the 50/50, which is right down the middle, and then there's a balance of prioritizing one over the other.
So why
Like it
can't we
is.
have a range that goes between, say, the middle campus maximum would be 68,000, and the upper campus max would be about 117,000?
Well, Emil's point is that we just need to make sure that the increment, if we change the increment on the middle campus, that's a meaningful increment so that you don't just get a sliver of a development.
If you left it at, for an example, if you left it at 43,000 square feet, you get 5.7 townhomes at 7,500 square feet, which is 17 to 34 dwelling units.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's meaningful or not.
We need to reach a conclusion here.
yeah, it's getting late.
Very late. It's getting, and we need, I'm not letting us out of here until we do table 4, so.
If you look at the totals on.
I'll take whatever Emil says.
If you add up, okay, say they knock the buildings down, but they're entitled to 90,000 essentially on the middle campus and 92,000 on the upper campus. That's Plan 1. So essentially, 90,000 on both levels. That's the halfway point. The benefit for them, I think, is more toward Plan 2, which is, I think, what you want, is if you offset it on the top, what I like is that potentially they can keep Carroll Hall in operation, sell half of the top, make some more money, and they still have, they can build 65,000 additional square feet on top, and 43,000 if they take the buildings down on the middle campus, which is, again, probably 18 townhouses and, or senior housing, 18 units in the middle campus if they tear down Pilgrim Hall. So that's still a substantial number. I think it should be more in the,
But you're assuming that, I don't think the next step is going to be staying Kerr Hall and dividing the upper campus and giving the other half of the upper campus to, that they're using a lot of the things in the upper campus. They're not going to, the first thing they're going to do is, the first next step is developing the middle campus.
Is what, lower?
Middle
But
campus
you're
is
saying
the
give them a
next.
0, or if they do it, they're going to knock down the Pilgrim Hall and that's it.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that whatever happens next will be happening on the middle campus. It won't be dividing the upper campus. And
So we have to give them a project that they could sell for development, right, in the middle campus. So what area would that be? Because if we give them, then you're kind of forcing them to knock down the Pilgrim Hall and Retreat House and say, because they're going to want to build that, they can't build on a heritage, so give them the 43,000 square feet for the middle campus to be developed as they wish. And everything else is on the top of the hill. That's an option. But it's kind of encouraging them to demolish Pilgrim, which it's a building that has value. It's expensive to rehab, as I mentioned, but just the historical aspect would be kind of a shame. But then if they put 35% addition on it, where on earth are they going to put the addition? Because that'll destroy the front if they can't go up because of the height. But you'd have to go out the back, otherwise they just destroy the whole
If the
front.
goal is to keep the building, though, that,
The problem I'm having is we're going around in circles.
Yeah.
We have a range here that works. It might not produce the exact result we want, but it works.
So maybe we just go with the range that's here.
Give me another set of ranges.
Yep.
ASAP.
Yep.
I vote we take what we've got, because that's what we've got.
Yep.
It's a bird in hand.
Yep.
And
I agree.
to try and,
I agree.
massage this at this point.
The two viable strategies there.
Can we do like what the Great Estate Bylaw does and allow a higher FAR if the buildings are preserved?
They gave bonuses of 5 square feet for every building that's rehabbed.
I know.
So they're not, the problem here, there's only 35,000 square feet or 32,000 of historical buildings.
I'm not
That's
saying
much of a bonus.
historical, I'm just saying that.
But that's toward a total build-out on the site, but they're already twice the build-out that
Right.
they could be in Ipswich.
I think the onus should be on the seminary to determine how they want to sort this out. They have Frisbee golf. I remember Merwin telling us that people came from all over the country to play Frisbee golf, right? How could you possibly sell off the middle campus first? Just say. I'm being facetious. I'm facetious. But it does, the thing of it is, they could sell off a portion of the upper campus, stay in Kerr Hall. Then they could sell Kerr Hall. And instead of using all the square footage to replace Kerr Hall, they could divide that and then put some in the middle campus and a little more in the upper campus. We don't know who's going to be interested in this. It's very hard.
I make a motion that we vote on the range that Emil has in front of us.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Aye.
When I call your name, please indicate your assent. Pat Norton,
Pat Norton, no.
Jonathan Poor,
Jonathan Poor, aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
Aye.
Beth Herr,
Aye.
Darcy Dale,
Darcy Dale, aye.
And Marnie Crouch, aye. And Pat, I appreciate your sentiments. It's just we've got to get a move on.
That's fine.
Okay, table four.
We're
Oh,
still
and
talking.
the other thing about the density, I don't see any reason why we need the open space requirement here. I think we can take out that column.
All right.
I don't think it adds anything. Soup.
Although we want to revisit the
Yeah.
buy right, get out of jail, don't need 40% open space element that we're allowing. Right?
For the lower campus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, the
I don't know how
problem
we do
is the requirement of the 40% open space is it applies to new construction or expansion. Let me just read this, because this is something that, you know, we kind of just glossed over without realizing it. It says 9.9.6.2, specific requirements for new development or expansion of existing buildings requiring a special permit. So if the buyers of the apartments do not request expansion to put in elevators or anything like that, then we don't have a foothold to enforce the open space requirement in 9.9.6.2.2 or the other requirement of private and public space in multi-housing developments. So in my view, at this point then, the onus is on the buyers. If they want to attract good tenants, they have to figure out where these tenants are going to walk and play and everything else. I mean, because it will adversely affect the market rate housing if there's no public space of any kind that's remotely usable.
But we know that the proposed development intends on hopefully using the 10% allowed additional square footage, which triggers a special permit, which would trigger the 40%.
Right.
Yep.
And so that's true. And so that is a real, that's a good hook. But we have to balance here, because as I said,
Yep.
both of those, the open space and the what do we call it? The public access, the private and public access, give the planning board discretion to modify that requirement. And so we have to think about, as I said before, the benefits of having the 209 units on the SHI. That is such an enormous benefit to the town that gives us such leverage with respect to other potential 40Bs that we don't want to cut our nose off to spite our face. I mean, that's just a practical matter here. So the special permit process will trigger, but at this juncture, we have those A&R lots and a map that's stamped by a surveyor that delineate those A&R lots, and I can assure you, we're going to get A&R requests based on that mapping. It is, in a sense, too late to redo that and still make December 9th. It's not my happy place, but that's where we are. So, yes, we will be able to deal with that when we get that special permit. And we've made the comments to the seminary about providing maybe easements or some other way of using that space in the middle campus or even the heritage landscape for parks, playgrounds. And if Pilgrim Hall is to be used for commercial purposes, they might have to seek a special permit to have parking for Pilgrim Hall in the middle campus. And that parking will have to be landscaped so that it is not an eyesore to the residents in the apartments. So, anybody want to tell me I'm wrong in that thinking? Because if not, we'll go to table 4, and maybe we'll get home by 11 o'clock.
We've got to get it done.
We got to get it done.
I think the only contentious things here or the questions is, where did you get the building footprint and floor area on this? So I anticipating that's the problem, because all of the heights are limited to 35 feet, and the multifamily dwelling occur only in the LC 1 and 2. Those are existing 3 stories, so they would be permitted. That's for that. And the building footprint for LC 1, 8,500 square feet. The largest of the 4 in that group 1 is 8,450 square feet. And the building floor area, the gross maximum, the largest of those 4 buildings, A through D, is 26,000 square feet. So that essentially replicates what's there. LC2, same thing. 18,500 is the biggest footprint of ERF. And the total of the 2, the maximum one, is 55,000 square feet. So that's how those 2 numbers came about. Those are existing sizes that, at least to comply with our code, to be conforming, that would have to be in this category. Now, the townhouses, 3 to 6 dwelling units, and actually the senior housing semi-attached duplex are all based on kind of a median, 2,600 square feet each for each unit. That's in the mid-range. You can go up to 3,000. That's really elegant and expensive, but I have it at 25 or 26,000. So what was indicated was, in doing some research, you don't want to get too many of those. So I had 3 to 6 dwelling units long, which, if you do the math, if the facade in these buildings, if each unit is, say, 25 by 50, and I guess everybody knows what a townhouse is, they're sort of horizontally attached, not vertically, so you're stacking horizontally. That means an owner of one has 2 levels, the first floor and the upper level, so each one is 2 stories. The footprint is 1,250 square feet, 25 feet by 50 feet in size to the front facade's 25. That's really sufficient to get great light coming in. I wouldn't go any less than that. You can go wider, but then you go shallower to come up with the same square footage. So if you had 3 of them, they'd be 75 feet long. If you had 6 of them, it'd be 150 feet long of stacked units. That's kind of a maximum. So my thought was you can go in between 3, 4, 5, and come up with some different array so they're not quite all the same. So that's where these townhouses, the 7,500 square feet in the MC middle campus, the 7,500 square feet is 3 together of a footprint of 350. 1,200 times 3 is 3,750, right? Let's see, 7,500. That should be 3,750 on that number, and then 15,000 is the total on. That's the footprint on a 6 unit for a maximum. So 3,750, which is 3 times 1,250.
Is there an error in there?
Yeah, 7. Yeah, 4,750. 3,0,355, carry the 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and 3. No, 3,750 is a small. Yeah, that first 7,500 was a mistake. The 7,500 on the upper campus should be 3,570. It's 3,750 square feet.
Both of them, middle campus and upper campus?
They're both the same, upper and middle, for townhouses.
3,750?
37 is the footprint for a 3 unit. 3,750 and 15,000 is the footprint for a 6 unit. 30, 12, 30, 40, 15, area 1, 7. Yep, I'm going to say 7. 750, yeah. And anyway, that's where those, so it was the smallest footprint is a 3, and a larger maximum footprint is, would be, but actually the building floor area is 2, so it'd be 2 times that, so 750 on 2 floors, so for that building. So the, yeah, that was maximum floor area, 18,000. It's getting kind of late. 12 fixed, 50, 30 is a 3, 2, 6, 12, 30, 45, 1, 7. So 15,000 is the maximum because that's 2 floors, so 15,000 is correct. That's both floors, but the footprint is 3,750 and 3,750 in the upper campus, but 15,000 is correct. So the 7,500 should be changed to 3,750 as the smallest footprint. Now the senior housing, again, this is kind of modeled on the boulders. Again, each unit there in their duplex, semi-attached duplex, each unit is 2,000 square feet, but they have a partial second floor, so they're not doubling the area on the second floor. So it's, the breakdown is 2,000 plus 500 on the second floor, or 600 square feet on the second floor. So that's mostly one-level living, primary bedroom on the main level, and then spare bedrooms on the second level. So the smallest footprint for 2 of those buildings, which we consider one building, is 4,000 square feet. Again, middle and upper campus would be the same. And the total building area is roughly 6,000. I added a little there. So if each unit is 2,600 or 2,500 square feet, that's 5,000 plus a little bit more for garage space, in that. Then the assisted living, again, we were using the model from Boulders. The footprint could be as large as 50,000. The total should be 75,000. Again, that came from Riverbend, looking on their property card. That's what they have. They have a 3-level building, 25,000 each level. 1 is underground, I guess it's part of a memory care, and then 2 above. But the total build out there is 75,000 square feet, so that's why that's there as a model number. 50,000 is a max footprint. It could be smaller, but the 75 is fixed. Repurposing existing educational assembly, actually, that building is Care Hall. It's a 40,000 square foot footprint that's existing, and the total area is 75,000 square feet on the upper campus only. So that's if you repurpose that for some other reason. That's in the allowables. That's what you could build there. And then the rest of it is by permit. So, and everything else, other than the apartments, is 2 stories. We could go to 2.5, but the problem with going with 2.5 or so to getting taller is that you flatten out your roof. If you're going to limit it to 35 feet, it's going to be a shallower roof pitch, which I think is less desirable. And for these kinds of uses, I don't think there's a need for that, for 2.5 stories. Anyway, so with that 1 correction, or 2 corrections, 3,750 on the building footprint for the dwelling townhouse. That was the source of those numbers, and that became kind of the model used in all of the build-outs. That's how I got at the total square footage and the number of units that would make up in that table. So that's how it all worked out.
Well, and then I will just add to this that one of the provisions that we added, and I mentioned it at the outset, is that if there were to be a proposed development that altered these 2 numbers, the building footprint and the building floor area, and please, if you don't like my language, just tell me. The planning board may modify the maximum building footprint and maximum building floor area in Table 4 upon a showing that the increase in either or both metrics will not compromise the purpose and intent of any other applicable provision of this bylaw. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that would give us discretion, not to, go wild, but to, within reason, allow a slightly bigger building. Because you never know what, this is the problem with designing for the future when you don't know what the future holds.
Yeah.
So, with that said, we will make a correction to Table 1 to address the potential attempt to rebuild the apartments. That would not probably be allowed within the same footprint because of all the other provisions that would apply, like Conservation Commission stuff, but we will add that. The table of use regulations has the most changes and has the legal question for Robin Stein, but just to recap, we're adding residential by right for Pilgrim Hall, the Gatehouse, and the Retreat House. We're also addressing the potential rebuilding the apartments by special permit, and we are moving the row providing for small-scale retail cafe from commercial to accessory uses.
Do we need table 4? Is a requirement to provide it? If we already are addressing the density of table 3. Table 4, my concern about table 4 is it's a special permit process that is governing the development of any of these things. And I think you're giving an illusion that by following these metrics, a developer will get approval. I don't see a value in providing this table, I guess is my point.
The only thing, you need something in conjunction with the FAR, because that doesn't limit anything except how many square feet you can build on a lot. So it could be very narrow and very tall. It could be one story covering the whole lot.
We got a height restriction.
We have a height restriction, and we also have a building size restriction, because if you don't have a building size restriction, that could be a real problem.
And then the other thing we're adding is a note, but what's the minimum space between buildings? The 20 feet. I got to add that.
There's a question.
Oh, yeah, to this column?
Somewhere in this
Yeah.
table.
I didn't know if it was common to do it.
It's what?
I didn't know if it was common to do it in this way.
Well, I was just looking at
in many other bylaws written this way.
Oh, even in the senior housing bylaw, I thought there were tables like
Well, the
this.
town center code has a maximum square footage. It's a maximum square footage. It doesn't have actually footprint, a maximum footprint, and the building height and the FAR. That really kind of locks it in. And the coverage is the other thing you need.
Okay.
It manages scale.
Yeah, I understand.
That's what captures the character, so you don't get too big a building in one part of the campus and a bunch of small buildings in another or something like that. It's kind of spreading it out.
Good.
It's the best I could come up with, anyway.
Bruins lost. Motion to adjourn.
Oh, no. We need to have a motion to approve, sorry, not to disappoint. We should probably have a motion to approve the revised planning board schedule of fees, to which there was no objection. Can we do that, or is that noticed out for the 4th as well?
I think you can treat them separately, because it's not zoning. It's something the planning board can approve on its own.
Shall I make a motion?
Sure, yes.
Whoever gets us home.
Okay, I move that we approve the revised schedule of planning board fees.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So when I call your name, please indicate your assent. Pat Norton.
Pat Norton, aye.
Jonathan Poor.
Jonathan Poor, aye.
Emil Dahlquist.
Emil Dahlquist, aye.
Beth Herr.
Aye.
Darcy Dale.
Darcy Dale, aye.
And Marnie Crouch, aye. And now I'll also entertain a motion, since there was no response, a motion to approve the site plan regulations governing the ministerial requirements for all site plan applications.
So moved.
Second.
Please indicate your assent. Pat Norton,
Pat Norton, aye.
Jonathan Poor,
Jonathan Poor, aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
Emil Dahlquist, aye.
Beth Herr,
Aye.
Darcy Dale,
Darcy Dale, aye.
and Marnie Crouch, aye. And now, Darcy,
Yes, I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn for the evening.
do I have multiple seconds?
Second.
So when I call your name, you can say you assent when you're walking out the door. Pat Norton,
Pat Norton, aye.
Jonathan Poor,
Jonathan Poor, aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
Emil Dahlquist, aye.
Beth Herr,
Aye.
Darcy Dale,
Darcy Dale, aye.
and Marnie Crouch, aye.
That wasn't so easy now, was it?